Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1446 of the War News stream. And tonight we have more big news. We've seen that Russia has threatened full-scale war with Europe today over fake provocations. Also, Iran is now preparing preemptive attacks on U.S. forces in the region and also are conducting major missile tests today. And also, communist Cuba has declared a crisis over a U.S. fuel blockade, and currently they've canceled all flights starting on Monday because they don't have any more aviation fuel. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world as we have been able to hear major developments from every single corner of the globe, including the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Cuba, and also the Super Bowl. I'm just kidding, we're not covering anything about the Super Bowl. But outside of that, we do have major news in every other category from around the rest of the world, as we have been able to confirm that the Russian Federation, through the Foreign Ministry statements today, have insinuated a threat, well, actually not insinuated, they directly stated a threat of war against the entirety of the NATO contingent of the European Union, stating that they have an intent on taking over the entirety of the world, and if the Europeans ever conduct an attack against Russia, which it appears that they're poised to do according to Lavrov, they are going to start a war with Europe that will be larger than the quote-unquote special military operation that they have going on in Ukraine. Basically, they're just trying to stir the pot right now and generally build up some sort of a working premise or storyline, if they need it for later, that the Europeans attack them and their war would be defensive instead of an offensive one into Europe. Meanwhile, the Iranians are also preparing for preemptive strikes against the United States of America, with the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran stating today that the Iranians are poised and ready to strike at giving commands notice 3,000 to 4,000 U.S. soldiers within the region and kill them outright. We've also been able to hear that they've issued NOTAMs over the majority of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as they are still conducting ballistic missile drills throughout a larger part of the country over the course of the day. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that the Israelis are hurriedly working on a brand new interceptor, which will replace the Arrow 2 exo-atmospheric interception vehicles, and we've also seen that the Vice President of the United States is currently within Azerbaijan, meaning that we will not be conducting an attack on Iran at least this weekend. I mean, that's obvious, but now it's a guarantee. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that the Iranians are still running out of water, and not just in Tehran, but also within Mashhad, as Mashhad is now down to basically non-existent levels of water for its population, meaning that the Iranians won't be moving their capital from Tehran to Mashhad. They're going to have to find somewhere else, somewhere where there's water, which has been a bit of an issue as of late. We've also been able to hear that the Republic of India has seized a significant number of Iranian oil tankers that were transiting near to their waters last night, with around 3 to 4 having been officially seized. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that the Indians appear to be dropping Russian oil again and picking up oil substitutes primarily from the United States or other countries from around the world. It appears, I have to add in on that, by the way, I forgot that I need to add this in. It appears that at least for now, India is starting to distance itself once more from the BRICS alliance. But considering how flip-floppy India has been in foreign policy over the past year and a half, I wouldn't count on this lasting for long. We'll have to wait and see, of course. Meanwhile, at Diego Garcia, we have been able to see even further amounts of military action, and the United States of America has increased its submarine presence in Australia to deter the Chinese from expanding further out outside of the barrier island chains that we have built within the area. We have also been able to see some other major developments going on in Cuba and elsewhere, including inside of Cuba, the major development that they have completely run out of all sorts of fuel, and appear to be shutting down all of their infrastructure, even including their international airport. We've also seen a CIA flight into Venezuela, and the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted significant attacks on the Russian Federation, generally stopping most, if not all, advances over the course of the day on the front lines as well. But before we move on into all of this news and the rest of the opening here, it actually appears that we have breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we have very big breaking news right this second. And we're not entirely sure exactly what this is, but I want to bring your attention to some movements that we're currently seeing on Flight Radar 24. Whiteman Air Force Base, which is the home to the B-2 bomber, currently is deploying at least 3 KC-135 tankers from their Air Force Base, and all of them are heading northwest is what I'm trying to say here. So we're currently seeing this deployment. Unfortunately, I've reposted on Twitter in case it's disappeared from the map. It looks like those tankers have left and they've gone probably over, it looks like Montana at this point, from the looks of it. So I'm wondering if maybe there's B-2s in tow. We simply don't know that right now, but it appears to be those refuelers took off from Whiteman, which is home to the B-2. So Enforcer, can you tell us any more information or some more details about what this could be?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't really be able to, because these tankers took off from Spokane, Washington, and the last time we saw the diversion efforts being conducted against Iran, those tankers took off from California. Also, it appears that the closest they made it to Whiteman Air Force Base was about 600 miles, which is...
No, go check the Twitter post. We go check that. It has the proof.
Well, these are the same aircraft. Like, these are all the same ones, just having moved a little bit later. Like, this one down here as well appears to have taken off from Tampa, Florida, and is currently heading off in this direction. It's a singular KC-135, however, and also at its closest was about 150 miles from Whiteman. And the last time we saw any diversionary efforts being done, those KC-135s practically flew directly over Whiteman, like within a few miles of the airfield, and then started to fly directly west across the United States of America in a bit of an arc on its way towards Hawaii. And then they replaced those tankers at Hawaii with additional tankers that took off out of Hawaii, and then those tankers then flew on into the area of the Western Pacific, and by then Operation Midnight Hammer was being conducted. So I would have to say this is interesting, but they weren't wildly close to Whiteman, and there are a large amount of tankers that are in the air at the moment throughout the entirety of the United States, including these near California. So it looks more like normal movements to me, at least for the moment. But we will generally have to wait and see, because it may be something, but it's a little bit too early to tell.
Interesting. Well, we'll keep an eye on it.
And outside of that, though, moving on into the rest of our summary, we have also been able to hear that we do have a fundraiser tonight for none other than Nova Ukraine, which is an absolutely incredible nonprofit and does help to save a great deal of lives inside of Ukraine. And so with that, folks, we are, as tradition dictates, going to be getting on into our news, starting with the largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. And of course, folks, we are going to be moving immediately into the Russian Federation and into Moscow, as we have been able to hear some incredibly significant significant news from the Russian Foreign Ministry and statements that have been made today. This statement largely came out of nowhere, and I do have to say that this literally came out of left field today, this largely open threat against Europe, but it does appear to be building up some sort of a plausible framework or a storyline that the Russians might be able to use later to justify a larger conflict with Europe. Just to currently explain the situation for everyone right now, the general overview and the broader environment that this statement's being made in right now in foreign policy, the Russian Federation has been hammered significantly by the armed forces of Ukraine and also have been suffering significantly under global economic sanctions, including those by the United States of America. Because of this, the Russian army and the Russian economy are in pretty bad condition currently at the moment, with the Russian economy expected to last only about a year from this point before it completely collapses due to the larger oil companies which make up the bulk of Russia's economic activity going into bankruptcy and receivership, and also the high likelihood that the Russian armed forces are so depleted at this point that offensive capabilities may be well beyond their reach for most of the armed forces except for the intact regiments and brigades that the Russians have not dedicated into the war in Ukraine so far, which are very few and far in between. The Russians, however, have been trying to see about a last-ditch effort from what we can tell and what we can surmise by their foreign policy developments and actions, as it does appear that the Russian Federation did form the Leningrad Military District in 2024, which appears to be charged with the responsibility of preparing and fighting a war with NATO if and when that happens, as the borders of the Leningrad Military District are the only military district in Russia that directly borders NATO's borders as well. Not only that, we have seen that as of late, the Russian Federation has started to move larger amounts of forces near to the area of the Finnish border and have conducted border raids near to the area of Vasnarva in Estonia. All of these actions have been heavily indicating to us here on the channel that the Russian Federation is still considering a desperate last-ditch attempt at starting a war with NATO, in particular the European contingent of NATO. The reasoning behind this action, at least from what we could try and make sense of here, is that if the Russian Federation is in a truly rough spot, they generally will see that their government will cease to exist by every measure, and therefore basically these people are looking down the face of oblivion right now in the Russian government, including Putin. If that is going to be the case, then they might as well go ahead and put all of their chips on the table and go all or nothing and see about possibly starting a war with Europe, threatening a larger nuclear exchange either through tactical or strategic means, and then forcing NATO and the United States, or generally the entirety of NATO if we would put it that way, to the negotiating table to try and get significant concessions in Ukraine and throughout the entirety of Eastern Europe. That might be a way that they could try and recover the situation, and that seems what they've been working on for a while now. The Russian Foreign Ministry has largely started to work off of those statements today, and I'll make sure to read y'all what we have here from Horseface, aka Sergei Lavrov. According to the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, he stated that Russia would deliver a full-scale military response using all available means in the event of an attack by Europe. This would not be a special military operation on our part, it would be a full-fledged military response with all the current means at our disposal, according to Lavrov. This also came from a statement that he had been making earlier to the public in Russia, that the Western world, particularly that of Europe, is hell-bent on dominating the entirety of the globe and eventually invading and capturing and destroying the Russian Federation, its government, and its people. For this reason, they then stated that the Europeans are highly likely going to attack Russia at some point in the future, and if they do, they're going to be going into a full-scale war. Now, this is an incredibly important thing to note here, especially with this special kind of yapping that's being done, is that it's posing any sort of future Russian military actions against Europe in a defensive framework, or at least attempting to build up a storyline or a baseline to where it will appear to be defensive. This is actually something that they did inside of Ukraine before the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Since the Russian involvement in the annexation of Crimea and also the formation of the DPR and LPR in 2014, the Russian Federation continued to push forward a story in Russia and abroad that the Ukrainian armed forces were conducting genocides and ethnic reprisals against ethnic Russians that were living within the Donbass region, and for that reason, they were going to invade Ukraine because of their endless slaughter of the Russian people and their endless destruction. That was generally the claim that they used to be able to invade Ukraine in the 24th of February of 2022. This is a very similar statement, and the Russian Federation does have a very significant history since 1991 of always trying to structure their entry into a conflict as a defensive one, although most, if not every conflict they've ever been involved in since 1991 has always been offensive, including the Chechen War, specifically the Second Chechen War, which was administered by Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin actually had the FSB create what is the Belsan bombing, where about 500 Russian civilians were killed inside of their apartment buildings from bombs that were detonated within the basements, and then that was blamed on Chechen separatists that were already living within the autonomous Chechen Republic. That is what Putin used to justify the second invasion of Chechnya, which is called the Second Chechen War. And from what we know now, it appears that there were no Chechen separatists operating in that area of Moscow, or anywhere in Moscow for that matter, during that period of time, and it appears to have been an FSB-led activity. It was that same justification that was used against Ukraine in 2014 and 2022, and it was also the very same justification that was used against the Republic of Georgia to Russia's southern border back in 2008 that led to the short-lived Georgian War. Basically, every time the Russians are trying to get ready to start an offensive war, they always make sure to start putting out a narrative that'll make it seem like they might be operating defensively, so that way they can either blow up their own people and blame that on the Europeans and then start a war with Europe as a result of that, or they can at least try and get it in the public's mind, not only in Russia but around the world, that the Europeans are trying to attack them, and so if the Russians invade them, clearly it was a preemptive action to protect themselves from what would be an imminent attack. That seems to be the high likelihood of what the Russian Federation is trying to go for right now, and it is also a little bit concerning for that degree, because usually the Russians yap a good deal, but considering that their economic situation is very bad off at this point, along with their strategic situation for their armed forces, it's highly likely that they are possibly trying to build a narrative to be able to start a larger war with Europe. And once again, I do have to remind everyone here that Russia does not have to have the conventional abilities to win a war with Europe by conventional means alone to be able to even go into this war. The paradoxical thing about a conventional war with the Russians, as far as NATO is concerned, is that even if Russia is woefully under-equipped, they still have nuclear weapons on paper that are operational. And because of that, that means that we can never completely steamroll the Russian Federation in a conventional war, because they can always threaten the use of tactical nuclear weapons, which is basically the stalemate device that the Russians possess in its only form. That means that if the Russians force a war with the greater part of NATO or the entirety of NATO, that means that we are going to have to eventually get to the negotiating table, or either push this to the absolute envelope of what we believe we can achieve before the Russians start to use tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield. That is generally where the Russians are trying to force this. And once again, to threaten the use of a tactical nuclear weapon, or to use a tactical nuclear weapon on the battlefield, you do not have to have an amazingly good army. You just have to have an aircraft that can carry the nuke, or a missile that can carry that nuke to the battlefield. Either way, it will make it there, and once it makes it there, the damage and also the Pandora's box that'll open will be as clear as day. But it does appear that a lot of people are talking right now about this very development out of the Russian Federation and the statements that were made by the Russian Foreign Ministry today, and a lot of people are wondering whether the Russians are trying to set up a larger provocation against the NATO contingent in Europe or not. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so now that we've heard brand new, fresh threats from Horseface toward Europe, that is, Russia stating that if Europe dare aggresses against Russia in any way whatsoever and threatens Russian security, then Russia will start a real war on Europe. So is Russia trying to set up a provocation, or what do you think? 55% said no, Russia's simply yapping again, while 32% said yes, Russia's trying to set up a provocation to start a war, and 8% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I am very confident this is yapping. This is the yapping of the worst sort. It's yapping of literally starting World War III, because Russia cannot attack NATO and start a real war, because it's going to get really, really ugly and really nasty. The only thing they could try to do is maybe go for one of the Baltic states, which are also NATO, but with the intention of basically of cutting them off with the Suwalki Gap and using Kaliningrad to cut the NATO forces off. But even that is a bit of a stretch right now. That would be a big leap for Russia to take. So I think it's just yapping. This is nothing unusual for Lavrov. It's nothing unusual for example, Medvedev when he makes the similar threats. They simply do this when it's time to make headlines again, basically. So I don't think they're setting anything up. I think they're simply just back to their usual propaganda once again, and I'm with the 55%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to actually be with a 33%, because I would believe that the Russians are probably trying to set up some sort of a framework for later, so that way they can justify a quote-unquote defensive war against NATO, although it will be entirely entirely offensive, because we have seen that in the past the Russians are building up forces around the Finnish border. They conducted a border violation near Estonia that appeared to be wildly deliberate. They've also continued to fly drones into NATO territory of multiple NATO countries, or they've flown them into Moldova. And with all of those sorts of direct actions combined, we can get a general idea that they are looking at a very provocative stance towards NATO at large. And not only that, with their crippling economic and strategic situation for their military and also their bottom line, it also seems to me that that would start to put them into a do or die sort of a situation, a lot like we've been talking about for years on the channel, because they don't really have a lot of time to just yap as usual. Now the yapping has to start lining up to be able to create some action that could happen later. And with the fact that the Russian Federation has already been conducting very wildly aggressive actions over the past few months against NATO, and now we're seeing that they're starting to put out this framework right here about the NATO alliance and what their greater intentions are in the future, this is the very same thing that they did in diplomatic rhetoric against the Chechens leading up to the Second Chechen War, against the Georgians leading up to the Georgian War, and against the Ukrainians twice, both in 2014 and in 2022, when they conducted both of their invasions during those two different periods of time. And considering that this is a very well recorded and observed sort of a phenomenon by the Russians, that they always have to pose all of their military actions in the present day as some sort of a defensive action in the big picture, this seems to be setting up that sort of a narrative framework that for later, when they try and start a war with Europe, they can say that it clearly is some sort of a defensive action, because either Europe was about to attack them and they have some clear imminent proof of that, like with Ukraine, like with the biolabs and the ethnic cleansings of the Russians in the Donbass, neither of which were ever confirmed to be true. Or they could say something along the lines of, oh my God, look at this apartment building that got blown up in St. Petersburg. These guys were supported and funded by the German government within Berlin, and for that reason, that's what NATO wanted to do, so we're going to go to war with the entirety of NATO as a result of this. And once they do that, they don't have to win anything on the ground. They just have to be able to threaten a nuclear war, and if they do threaten a nuclear war against NATO, we will see that most likely they'll try and go to a negotiating table and possibly even make significant concessions to the Russians to try and see that this doesn't end up becoming any form of a nuclear exchange, even at a minimal tactical nuclear level. So I'd actually have to be with the 33%. I have a feeling that this is probably this doesn't seem like an important statement right now, but the fact that it's being phrased and worded in this way, I think that this has a larger intent behind it to start setting up a narrative framework for probably later on in this year, sometime around the summer.
Maybe possibly so. I mean, you know how North Korea, whenever North Korea starts getting really, really desperate for food, they start making the threats, like the war threats toward everybody again. They start threatening South Korea. They start going berserk and threatening nukes against the West because they want food. That's basically their call for help, is to start threatening everybody with war. I think Russia, their call for help basically might be threatening nuclear war against Europe, because if you notice what's happening in the background that might cause Russia to act out of sorts, they're currently facing a major situation where they're losing pretty much all of their remaining avenues to sell any petroleum products or oil products, because India is cutting them off. So that might explain why they're getting more desperate and making these escalations, at least verbally, is because they feel they're getting backed into a corner. So that could be why they're saying this. But once again, we don't know for certain. It is pretty much status quo for Lavrov to make threats like that, but it may be explained through that means.
Yeah, I would have to say so. I think it probably is. And that's why it is a bit concerning. And I'd have to say, folks, this isn't an imminent concern. I mean, like, don't worry about this tonight and go buy toilet paper or anything like that. It's not anything imminent like that. But this is certainly going to start coalescing in the future, at least from what I would believe. Because this statement, unlike others, seems to be made with purpose. Like, it's not just a random, like, shooting it out, like, oh, the Europeans are bastards, we're at war with NATO sort of a thing. This one seemed to be more so along the lines of, we need to set up some sort of a framework to where Europe poses an existential threat to us, and we need to make that clear now so that way we can try and do something or have something happen later that we can then blame on them and then go to war with them and claim that it's a defensive war. I think that might actually be a bit of the case, and also on top of that, we have to remember something else, and this is something that I really don't want to touch on, but this is important to consider in foreign policy. Considering that the Russians seem to have a decent amount of leeway with the current administration within the United States, to where if they say something, we largely take that mostly at face value. If the Russians are able to start setting out this narrative framework right now that Europe is planning on taking them over and wiping out all of the Russian people and yada 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 and so on, and then they blow up an apartment in St. Petersburg somewhere and kill a couple of hundred of their own people and then blame that on Europe, what in the world is the U.S. Government going to do? Is the U.S. government going to take that at face value and go, oh, It sounds like Russia's defending itself. We're just going to back off. We're not going to fulfill our Article 5 obligations within the NATO Charter. And that also could be another avenue that they're looking at here, is to somehow create a foreign policy and diplomatic development to where the U.S. could just back off and use the excuse of, well, it looks like Europe might have attacked Russia, so we don't have any defensive obligations at this point, and we're not going to get involved under the Article 5 Charter in defense of NATO. That might also be a likelihood as well that they're trying to work down at the moment, if we were to really consider all options here as to why this might be the case, that they would start making statements like this and building up a greater framework for later. That could be one of the reasons why. However, we also were able to see something else that was wildly interesting out of Moscow. Crazily enough, folks, they finally supposedly have found the gunman that attempted to assassinate the deputy general of the Russian GRU. And apparently the guy had fled to Dubai, at least from what they're saying now. And apparently Dubai arrested the guy inside of Dubai, and then extradited him back to Russia tonight. I don't have the video of him getting off the plane. It looks like it may have been copyrighted, so sadly I couldn't show that one. But I do have the video from the security camera footage that finally came out that apparently led to the identification of the person, and then their eventual return to Russia. And this was very interesting, actually, because this guy is walking through what appears to be 5 feet tall snow, berms, like everywhere around the sidewalks and stuff. This is right outside of the 25-story apartment where he just blasted the guy up in the stairwell. And this guy does something that's really ridiculous. He walks up to the snow berm, and he leans over and he, like, slams something into the snow berm. Turns out what it was actually a silenced Makarov just shoved in the snow. I mean, it's literally right there.
What? Wait a minute. So you're telling me that the alleged assassin that tried to take the Russian general out took the Makarov, the assassination weapon, and stuffed it near the crime scene?
Apparently.
I don't know about that. That's very, very suspicious to me. That looks like something that was planned on purpose. Does it look like that to you?
Matthew, you're not saying that the FSB, which is famously known for using silenced Makarov pistols, would ever go to a crime scene and stuff a Makarov pistol into a snow berm right outside to make it look like this guy put that there? Are you saying that?
Yeah, let me tell you something. Like, there's rarely any instances where you can say this is bullshit. Like right off the bat, this is pure bullshit. No assassin, especially one that's trying to go for a general like that, is going to stuff the weapon right outside the crime scene like that. That not even the worst possible idiot assassin would do something like that. This is planted. Like, this is clearly planted by the FSB. This is so obvious, it's embarrassing.
Planted? Why would you ever think that, Matthew? The FSB would be smarter than that. I mean, like if it was the FSB, the one gun that they would obviously not shove into the snow would be a silenced Makarov, because that's literally like the main service pistol of the FSB. Like, if they had done that, I mean, that would be a whole other level of incompetence right there. And I'm also being sarcastic and also facetious. This is actually a silenced Makarov right here. Let me actually show you what this will look like once it's out. Actually, I think it might show you all in the video. Yeah, here we go. So this is what it looked like out of the snow. You can see the silencer. You see the little crappy Makarov.
Oh my God! It's also, this thing's like, what is this thing, like brand new, like fresh out the box, out the department store or something? This thing looks like it's never been used hardly.
Oh, bro, this just ain't no normal Makarov. This is a Makarov from the Izhevsk factory. This is the one that makes all the Makarovs for the Russian government.
Yeah, I think this right here might look a little sus.
It looks only a little sus. I mean, we have to have some plausible deniability here. I mean, would the Russians ever be that stupid? And the answer is yes. Oh, wait, he also threw some sort of a satchel right there, too. Look at that.
You know something? At first, I was wondering if maybe Ukraine tried to take this guy out. Now, after seeing this video, I am almost certain that the Russians, somebody in Russia, tried to take this guy out. This was probably not a Ukrainian operation. This was a Russian operation, and now the FSB is running cover for whoever carried this out inside of Russia. This is looking real odd now.
Let's see. Let me go pull up a Makarov with silencer. Let me go pull that up here really quickly so we can find this for y'all. So, no joke, folks. This is what's hilarious about this. This is basically, I mean, this is insane. Like, there's a whole bunch of different variants of suppressors for the Makarov. There's not really, like, a singular industrialized one that I know of that they use that's just produced en masse. The variants are different from place to place. Also, let me close this down here really quickly so I can show this to y'all. But this is what a silenced Makarov generally looks like. And these are basically used by the FSB only. Like there's not really a lot of people out there in the world who go, "Oh yeah, I really want that shitty 9x18 Makarov and I want to put a suppressor on." Not really a lot of people do that in the world, just to be completely honest with y'all. So it generally looks to me like they just went and grabbed some FSB Makarov, gave it to this guy, and was like, "Go shoot him, and we'll give you a certain amount of money, and we'll also give you a ticket to Dubai so that way you can get the hell out of here." And then he went to Dubai, and then he got found anyways and brought back, apparently. So this looks clearly like some sort of an inside job from some Russians. So it looks like the story that we were starting to work with yesterday, that it appears to be an inside job by someone who he had slighted prior, and they hired a hitman to go shoot him. It looks to be highly likely because apparently they might have had some sort of internal connection in the Russian government. Because it is very unlikely, folks, out of all of the assassination weapons that could have been used, it basically would be the main sidearm and the main suppressed sidearm of the FSB. I mean, that would be a very slim chance.
Yeah, I would say so. Very, very slim chance. I wouldn't even be surprised at this point if maybe it was something that the FSB might have had a hand in. Like perhaps they were trying to purge this guy at the orders of like maybe superiors or something like that. It possibly could have been because it's not unusual for the Russians to dispose of their generals after they get inconvenient after a while. They have done that before. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that. But this is very weird. Also, what's worse, here's what's even worse. The general survived. Like he's actually still alive. I think he's in foul shape, but he's still living even after all this stuff here. So this guy might be able to add some more details to the story now that he's still living. So if something else happens between now and him making any further statements, that's definitely going to be a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, it would be. Also, got to say, folks, it is quite odd. I mean, like, this is incredibly odd right here, and this is something that that an agent of the SBU would never do. One, they never go and shove a Makarov into the snow berm right outside the building to be found later. That was absolutely stupid. Secondly, they never take a pack that is probably filled with incriminating evidence against themselves into the snow berm right outside. I'll be entirely honest with you, if I had to put together the pieces right now and just use some common sense to get to it, this is probably some guy who is involved in a Russian mafia in Moscow that was hired by someone in the Russian government to take this guy out because this general had pissed him off prior and slighted them, or basically tried to screw him over, and they tried to get back at him by hiring this hitman from the mafia because this guy is so underprepared for what he did. I mean, he shoved a gun into a snow berm right outside of the crime scene. He then threw a pack into the snow berm right outside of the crime scene. So both the gun and any other incriminating evidence and a great deal of fingerprints and other evidence is going to lead back to this guy easy. It's literally right out of the crime scene and not even that hard to find. It's just like this was a very amateur right here. I would have to be honest.
Also, by the way, here's what really makes this damning. Remember, they said that the security cameras were out in the apartment. Remember where he was shot? They didn't have any footage because the security cameras didn't work. You remember that?
Yeah.
So apparently, none of the interior security cameras work, but every single one of the exterior cameras work to such a degree that we get multiple different angles of the shooter leaving the site. It's like, that doesn't even make any sense in itself. How are all these cameras outside working, but yet the ones inside aren't working? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and also another thing, Maddie, that I was just thinking about. We already know that this guy shot the general 3 times in the back, and apparently the general then fell down the stairs. So he had to run by him on the way out. So I'll just say this, not saying that this would have been a good thing for the guy to do, but if he was a well-experienced assassin that was well-trained, that would have worked with, say, the Ukrainian SBU, wouldn't the one thing that you would do passing by someone who is clearly still alive on the ground is, make sure to put one extra into them to make sure that they're out for good? I mean, instead of, basically just leaving it up to suspect chance whether the guy's going to live or not. He fell down the stairs. He was clearly alive at that point when this guy ran past him, and he didn't finish the job, and then he went outside and he threw his pack out into the snow. So I would assume that a whole bunch of identifying information about him, or a whole bunch of other incriminating evidence is in that pack, and then he took the suppressed pistol and then just smacked it right in the snow just a little ways down the street from there. It's like, this was the most incompetent and stupid hitman we've ever seen. I would have to assume that he's working with the Russian mafia.
Maybe possibly so. It's hard to tell, or it could just be that he knew too much or something of that nature, and they decided to take him out, one or the other. But this has the hallmarks of potentially having Russian government involvement as well, based on how this is being played out.
Yeah, but I would have to tell y'all, folks, this guy, whoever this guy was, he was either incredibly sloppy or the FSB came through and they planted all this on the scene later. But considering that they do have the guy on security camera footage going through and doing all of this, I mean, that is something to say. I think this is the hitman, and I think he was just that
Yeah.
stupid, maybe. So, what
I
are, hmm?
I have a feeling that the hitman failing his job because the general's still alive, so the hitman failed. Because the hitman failed, they went and grabbed him because they knew where he went. They went and grabbed him in Dubai, if that's actually the guy. They brought him back, and the FSB probably went out and manufactured this evidence right here by throwing the Makarov out to make it seem like they had all the proof they need to convict the person, even though they were probably involved in the cover-up themselves when the assassination was attempted. So that's what it looks like to me. So now the hitman is going to go face trial because he failed at his job.
Yeah, I would have to say so. And it looks like we have a question right now on this pistol. A lot of people are wondering, did the FSB plant the assassin's weapon? And Matthew, I want to quickly make sure, in that poll, does that mean that the FSB gave him the weapon to go use, or that the FSB planted that there after the crime was conducted?
The question is specifically about whether or not the FSB planted the weapon in the snow after the fact to make it look like it is.
Oh, okay. And so what are people saying about that? Because it looks like everyone's agreeing on this one. Like almost literally the whole planet is agreeing right now.
So it looks like 88% said yes, the FSB likely did plant the weapon after the fact, while 12% said no. They think it was actually meets the eye, and the assassin simply disposed of his a murder weapon right there in the snow, right next to the crime scene, like a clown. So I don't think an assassin, like anybody that's taking up assassination hits like this, they're not the type to go throw the weapon right next to the crime scene. That's just simply not the case. I see some people saying, well, it sounds like an amateur job. It sounds like they didn't know what they were doing. I mean, possibly so, but I don't know. Like the security cameras weren't working inside, but yet we have all these different angles outside the apartment building, which makes zero sense whatsoever. Also, I mean, even if you're an amateur assassin, who throws the weapon right outside the crime scene? I don't think anybody does that. I've never really heard of even doofuses doing that. So I think this is clearly some type of FSB involvement. And I'm going to say yes, but Enforcer, what say you?
I didn't say yes. There's some sort of a clear connection to the Russian government with this hit. And I'll tell you all this, with how inexperienced this guy was and also the fact that he fled to Dubai, no way in hell, not a chance that this guy's a Ukrainian hitman. Couldn't be. Because a Ukrainian hitman would know the last place they want to fly to anywhere in the world right now would be Dubai. Because if Dubai has an extradition treaty with the Russians, which apparently they have, why the hell would you ever go to Dubai as a Ukrainian hitman? You know that you're not even going to be safe there, and they might be able to catch you in Dubai while you're trying to get on another flight to leave Dubai and get you while you're there at that airport. So that's not going to happen. And on top of that, another thing is that Ukrainian hitmen are not going to be this inexperienced to throw their pack out right outside of the crime scene and also pack their gun into the snow right outside of the crime scene. Both of those things are so amateur hour level, the Ukrainians would just never do something like that. And we've seen Ukrainian hits before inside of Russia, quite a bit of them, and they're usually quite effective. They either plant car bombs, they usually sometimes they even planted bombs on electric scooters. Sometimes they'll come up behind someone and hit them, but usually they give them a tap in the back of the head once they're on the ground to make sure that they're out for good. All those things are generally key indicators and signs at this point that the SBU would be involved in that hit. This guy was so stupid, whoever he is, that he could not be affiliated with the Ukrainian SBU. This guy has no experience whatsoever, and he looks to be some sort of an amateur hour kind of a guy who was hired to do the job, probably at the lowest bid. So that's what I'd assume at this point, and I would...
Also, by the way, why everybody keeps saying something about they've accused a woman of being the assassin, but they picked up a guy on the plane that we saw coming from Dubai. So, what do you know about that? Is it true they're saying it's a woman that did it? Because I mean, this doesn't look like a woman to me in this video.
I don't know about those details, unfortunately. I haven't heard anything about that, so I wouldn't be sure.
Yeah, I don't think this would. I mean, that would be sort of unusual. A woman assassin. That would be kind of very rare, actually. Not saying that women can't be assassins, like it's equal opportunity. But at the same time, though, that's not really a common thing. So I doubt it.
And also, so I said, talking about things you have no clue about. I mean, we watched enough of these; we have a good clue about them. I mean, if you watch something go down about 5 times, you get all the details on it. You generally know what's what. Like, it's basic common sense that if you just shot someone, maybe the smartest thing to do is not leave the gun right where you shot someone at. Like that's just basic common sense. There's going to be fingerprints on the pistol. It's also right outside of the crime scene. So now they have a general idea of the weapon that you used, and then they might be able to trace the serial number if it has a serial number on it. And if it doesn't, they can do acid etching to try and figure out where exactly it was from if the serial number has been scratched off. I mean, there's a million things here that was wrong with this. And I mean, I don't have to know anything to know that it was done in a botch job because they went and caught the son of a bitch down in Dubai. So I mean, you don't have to be an expert to know anything about it. If they catch the guy when he's trying to flee, then he clearly did enough wrong that he was caught. So, that tells you enough there without you having to be an expert on this. But anyways, moving on from that, though, it appears that this general and his assassin or his would-be assassin isn't going to be entirely getting away with the whole thing. And it appears that while this guy has a couple of bullets in him still in some hospital somewhere in Moscow, he's apparently going to be making a recovery. But I think his time in the military is going to be over after this. But anyways, moving on from that, and on out of that little bit of news inside of Moscow, we have also been able to see, moving us on out of Russia and the major news that came out of Moscow today, down inside of the Middle East and inside the Islamic Republic of Iran, that there have been other significant developments that have been ongoing in the Middle East. And Matthew, make sure to get them polls running, because we've got a lot. We got a lot to cover down here. And so we're going to be moving on into the capital, the Islamic Republic of Iran's capital of Tehran, to cover all the major developments that we got today. Starting us off with a little bit of a warm-up, we were able to hear that the Iranian foreign minister has now claimed that at least one of the GBU-57s that was used during Midnight Hammer failed to detonate, and that they now apparently have it in their possession, which they then insinuated that they might reverse engineer it and try and make one of their own. Here's my question, though.
Go ahead.
Here's my question, though, because I think you're laughing at what I'm laughing at right now. Who in the hell in Iran has an aircraft that's big enough to carry this bomb?
Yep, that's what I was laughing about. I was like, this thing's exclusively dropped from the B-2 stealth bomber. It has to be because of the size of the thing and different various other requirements. It has to be dropped from the B-2 stealth bomber. So Iran has nothing even close to that. Like they're using like Tomcats, like they're using old fighter jets. They have nothing to carry it. So I mean, even if they can reverse engineer the thing, I mean, it's good for the museum. Basically, they can't even drop it.
Let me see if I can get you all the big... Okay, so the biggest aircraft that they have in terms of size in the whole of the Iranian Air Force right now that could drop one of these is an F-14 Tomcat. That ain't dropping no mop. A mop is about the size of a Tomcat's main nose section up here. That's about the size of a mop. There's no way that this thing can carry a mop. Never would be able to. And also on top of that, how does it make it through enemy airspace to drop that directly over the target, which is what you basically have to do with one of these. You have to be within just a few miles of your target and drop it and then let the stabilizer fins guide it on its way down. So this is a load of bogus. I'll be entirely frank with y'all. I would believe that there probably wasn't a single dud, because they also have not provided any real evidence in pictures of a dud GBU-57 that they've recovered from one of these impact sites. So I think the Iranian foreign minister is just yanking everyone's chain, because all of this seems to be a great deal of exaggeration. There's no way in hell they could ever use it if they reverse engineered it. And secondly, they've given no proof that this thing has ever been recovered intact.
And also, it's like, even if they recovered it intact, the thing is armed. So they have to disarm the weapon in order to inspect it and examine and reverse engineer it. So, I mean, they don't even have the technical knowledge to actually disarm the weapon in the first place. So the odds of being able to actually examine it is very low, because they don't even know how the thing works to even go about disarming it. So, I mean, that sounds very not likely, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to say it seems unlikely. And one last thing that seems a little bit goofy to me, folks, is that it's not even like the GBU-57 is really crazy, like in terms of its abilities, because the honest truth of this thing is, folks, is that it's basically just a giant hunk of steel that we drop on something, and because it's heavy enough and it's dense enough, it's able to push through a good bit of the ground before the fuse goes off for the little bit of bomb that it has inside of it. Because out of the 26,500 pounds that this bomb weighs, only about 6,700 pounds of that is explosives. The rest of it is just solid steel. And that's it. So it's not even like this thing's honestly that crazy. It really is more so, we just put enough steel on a fairly large bomb that it can make it through several hundred feet of ground before it explodes. So it's not even really like this thing is some sort of a wonder weapon or anything like that. You know, like say, a joint standoff weapon, or say any other form of a guided missile like an ALCM or something along those lines. I mean, that would be something scary if they got a hold of that, because that could actually help them out with their current missile programs and such. But this thing is literally just a normal dumb bomb that's just covered in a lot of steel, and it's really heavy, so it goes through a lot of soil before it blows up. So I mean, it's kind of a little bit ridiculous the claim that they made with this today. But they also made another claim.
I would say so, man. Honestly, it sounds like they've sort of debunker busted their own myth here at this point.
Oh, thank you, everyone. We'll be here all week except for tomorrow. But beyond that, though, we've also been able to get another statement out of Tehran today. Before we get to the really big one, which is the imminent strikes or the preparations for some form of strikes against the United States, which we might want to get the poll up and running on that one. We are going to be moving on to some news that we did get out of Tehran, or generally the entirety of the country, over the course of the day, as we were able to see that the Iranians did put up a poster today inside of Tehran, threatening Tel Aviv, and it says, "You start, we finish it." And they have a little overlay of Google Maps right here showing the general Tel Aviv area. You can tell that because the Ben Gurion International Airport's at the bottom of that map. So it looks to me like they're trying to threaten the Israelis again. I might not be the smartest guy, but this generally looks to be threatening Israel. I can't really get into it further than that. We also were able to see that apparently the Iranians put on their television show today, Memory TV, which is basically a state news agency.
Memory TV, by the way, is who translates these. That's not the actual news station itself.
Oh, I thought the entire time we've covered Iran news, dude, I've always thought that was the station.
Yeah, that's the kind people that are translating this to where we can understand Farsi.
And a huge thanks to Memory TV, then, for translating this, so that way we know what they're saying. But this was put on Iranian state television today. Unfortunately, now, I do not know what the channel is, because I thought it was Memory TV. It's not. But this was the Iranian Central News Network today, or something along those lines, that was showing off some of the ballistic missiles that they plan on attacking the United States and Israel with. And they did an entire show in front of a live audience about these. I gotta be honest with you all. Iran is a really bizarre place, that the way they do stuff like this. Like, I've never seen this done before. Like, I've never seen, like, Fox News or CNN just, like, have an F-15 sitting in the middle of their showroom going, "Okay, this is an F-15. This is what we hit Iran with." It's like, I've never seen anything like that. But here they are. The Kibar Shikan, which was designed by our colleagues, by our fellows in the Missile and Self-Sufficiency Jihad, is actually dubbed the Israel Striker. This is the Kibar managed to destroy a 6-person tent in its first test. Why, a 6-person tent? So they designed their missiles to obliterate tents? What do they think they're fighting? The 1920s? Are they fighting freaking Lawrence of Arabia and the Arabs?
Nomads.
Bro, dude, they actually designed these to conduct strikes on ISIS, actually, out in their tents in the middle of Syria. It can now easily flatten the Weizmann Institute. What the hell's
that?
I don't even
know.
Who's
this goober?
So now we have the Iranian version of, let's see, what the hell does he look like? I'm trying to think of something that he looks like right here. I don't even know. But he's looks
smiling like Cheshire Cat. He doesn't even understand. Also, what? Oh, wait a minute. What's that plaid shirt he's wearing under there? Go back.
Oh,
he's wearing like a plaid shirt and a vest. What? I don't know about this guy's fit. This guy's fit ain't quite right. Now, also that floral pattern on the wall, they can go ahead and rip that off the wall. That looks like crap.
Man, this guy looks like he's on the set of a children's show with the background that's back here. Man, it looks like a little Elmo is about to come out, like, or something.
Man, he's just happy to be here, man. He's just happy to be here,
man. And then we got Iran Tech Bro, dude. On God, bro. Nice cut, G. He says, "We do not play games when it comes to our soil." Oh, so now he's a farmer. Now he's talking about agriculture. I respect him. Let's see here. Whether we are facing Israel, the region's rabid dog, or its master, the United States. I'm not going to... Anyways, I'll just move on from that. I won't make any... Since World War II, the U.S. has been slapped only twice for its bullying. Where the hell is that? Will you elaborate? Who did this the first time? Iran! No, they did not. No, they never did. Who did it the second time? Iran. Okay, so out of every... I thought they were going to say, Vietnam or something like that. I never thought they were going to say Iran twice, When in the world did they ever beat us? Physically, in an armed conflict?
Yeah, I'd never like at all. Also, by the way, jump back to the headshot of this guy real quick. Like, let's see. Look at this. Why do I feel like this guy's about to break out any minute and be like pointing behind him and be like, you know how I acquired all this knowledge? It's like is he about to start pulling like some type of like crypto thing or something in a minute? What's up with this guy?
Man, I feel like this guy right here is about to rename himself into Dubious Rabbit, and he's about to do a halftime show or something like that with that cut. Like, he's got the whole deal going on right here. I feel like some people are about to click off of our show and go, I'm not participating in this stupid shit or something like that. But anyways, beyond that, though, Iran has never defeated the United States in any military engagement in world history. I just want to put that out there to y'all. If anything, the U.S. has kind of beasted on the Iranians twice because we overthrew their government in 1953 under a CIA coup led by Allen Dulles in the Eisenhower administration, and then we went and bombed the hell out of the Iranian Navy during Operation Praying Mantis, which, if I'm not mistaken, was during the Reagan administration. We destroyed half of their Navy in 30 minutes. So the Iranians have never beaten the United States once, much less twice. If anything, we've generally put a whipping on the Iranians at least twice at this point. Who shouldn't they mess around with? Iran. No, I think we should. I think we actually should, and I'm heavily in support of that. Bravo, Iran! Wow, this is like the this is literally the circle jerk competition run on state television in Iran. Like damn, like bravo, Iran! They say on the Iranian state television network run by the government of Iran. Anyways, wait, is that Ramzan Kadyrov's long lost cousin?
And they all have a thing for leather. Like, what's up with like dictatorships and leather? Like they love these leather jackets. Like this guy's got the quilted leather. That's even a step up from Kim Jong's jacket.
I have to tell you something, Don. We keep a very close connection to Ramzan Kadyrov, Don. We talk to him a lot, Don.
But moving on from that, one of the blows we dealt the U.S. during the 12-Day War was by means of the Zulfikar. Listen, Ali Akbar. What is this? I don't mean to ask.
He's referring to somebody. He's not saying the catchphrase. That's somebody in the room.
Allah Akbar. Yes, you called.
No,
not
guy,
you.
It's the guy right there. It's the guy right there in front of him. Apparently, he's talking to. That's Ali Akbar right there in front of him.
Oh my God. Like, bro, you know, if he ever went to Syria, he would be just irate. He'd be like, why are all these people constantly calling for me? Stop, bro. Everyone out there, we go, Allah Akbar. Yes, you called. No, not you. But anyways, the Zulfikar is merely the old man of our missile arsenal. It isn't even our high-tech missile. It's just a mid-range one. So is Tech Bro the missile expert of Iran?
I tell you, Ali Akbar is acting like he's not really understanding what he's being told. Like he's just kind of nodding his head, like, yeah. I was like, I don't think Ali Akbar has got knows what's going on here.
I don't think so. Which base did it target? Al-Adid. Is this Fada missile hyper? I mean, they have a Fada on the floor. They're calling that the Fada.
Yes.
And that's not even the one that we've seen as the Fada one before. Let me go show you all what we've seen before as the Fada 1 missile. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. I was thinking of the Fada 2. That actually is the Fada 1. This absolute garbage-looking thing right here. That's what they call their hypersonic missile, or at least their first iteration of a hypersonic. So let me get y'all back to this then, now that we know that that is a Fada 1, surprisingly enough. Is the Fada missile hypersonic? Yes, it is. That's why we let it on the showroom floor. Our Fada missile is high-tech, and our Kebar Shakan is also reasonably good.
Well, at least they're being honest. They're like, it's kind of reasonably good. That one's not our best work, but I mean, it can be improved.
Bro, he had to drop the BS there for me. He's like, it's reasonably good. But Zulfikar is mid-range and belongs to the older generation of missiles. Haydar. Well, I don't even know what they're saying here. They're just, I guess it's like some sort of a death to the infidel, inshallah, or something like, I don't know. But anyways, they keep chanting it. And they're
Who's this intended for? Is this like their version of like the nightly news or something? Well, what even is this?
I don't even know. Oh my God! It's the Grand Mufti.
Man, brought out the mullah. It's trouble now.
We will undoubtedly reach a velocity of Mach 16, inshallah. Oh my God.
16. That's some high goals there, mullah.
We'll extend our range from 2,000 kilometers to several thousand. That is several thousand. 2,000 kilometers is several thousand kilometers. We will certainly increase our current 1,500 kilogram payload to a capacity of 4 tons, which is a lot more than 1,500 kilograms. The enemy had better take note of this. Well, I think we are, and I don't think we are going to.
Man, that mullet he just literally like stood up and took the whole show over just from the stands out there. He just stood up and started yapping off the cuff like he was like, "We're gonna extend the range to 3,000 kilometers, inshallah." It's like, who's this guy to stand up in the audience just starting to yap?
You know what? I got to know what this guy sounds like here because he just literally took over the whole show for the last 15 seconds. Let's listen to him in actual audio. No way, he can't be talking like that, sounding like Pipsqueak.
Man, I'll tell you what, this guy right here, you gotta watch out for him. You gotta watch out for these random ones that hop about the audience talking about this crazy talk.
Man, I gotta say, some crazy stuff right there. But that's what the Iranians are putting out on state television today. Something interesting there. And that seems to be getting backed up a little bit by the Iranian Foreign Ministry, as we did get to hear that the Iranian MP Nabavian, this guy right here, stated today, one wrong move from the President of the United States, and at least 3,000 to 4,000 U.S. soldiers will get killed. So, largely insinuating that they have some sort of a preemptive strike doctrine that they're working with right now, and if the U.S. steps in the wrong direction, they're just going to head and start trying to attack the United States within the area. There is a little bit of credence to say that this could be slightly concerning, but I also have to give a little bit of a caveat to that after we get this news out. According to Yedioth Ahronoth, Iran is now producing hundreds of ballistic missiles every month. Most of them use liquid fuel, while some newer ones are solid fuel precision missiles. Even if the quantity is not very high, the large number could overwhelm both Israeli and U.S. air defense systems. The problem with this, though, is that we have not heard of Iran introducing in large numbers any new transport erector launchers, because you can have hundreds of missiles, sure, but if you cannot fire those missiles off at a high volley, it's completely useless. And let me give you all this example. Say we have one transport erector launcher, and this is a specialized vehicle that can fire this missile, and it can't really be fired any other way. So you have to use the transport erector launcher, and it can only fire one missile at a time. If you have 500,000 missiles and one transport erector launcher, that means you can only fire off one of these missiles at a time. And once you fire that one missile off, you then got to go drive back to wherever the other 500,000 missiles are, reload, and then go out and fire one more missile again. Now, on the other hand, if the Iranians had 500,000 missiles, but they also had 1,000 transport erector launchers, that means in every single attack wave, they are firing off around 1,000 missiles, instead of just a singular one. So while they are producing a large amount of missiles, we have absolutely no intelligence or any information here on the channel about how many transport erector launchers they have been able to get into their possession. And we also know that a large amount of them, about several dozen, we believe somewhere to 30 to 40 of them, were destroyed during the 12-day war by Israeli strikes, meaning that right now we believe that the largest number of TELs that they have available is somewhere around 60 to 70, which means that they can fire off 60 to 70 missiles a volley, but nothing larger than that. Even if they have thousands of missiles in stockpile, that just means that they can keep up a tempo of 60 to 70 missiles fired per wave each time, but they can't overwhelm us with thousands of missiles all fired at a singular time. And a lot of people are wondering about the statements by the foreign minister, or more so the Iranian member of parliament that was made today, and wondering whether or not the Iranians are preparing for some form of a preemptive attack, because none of this sounds like negotiation talk, that we can say. So Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we did also see today that Iran closed some of its airspace to perform ballistic missile tests, and we even got reports about 40 minutes before we went live on the air that the eyewitnesses on the ground were also seeing some of those missiles being launched. So is Iran preparing for a preemptive attack? 51% said no, Iran is simply saber-rattling and trying to scare off the U.S. forces, while 33% said yes, Iran is planning to preemptively attack, and 10% said it could be, but we need more info first. And the risk of what Iran is doing here is this could easily be misinterpreted to be the launch of an attack on Israel or U.S. bases. They're currently performing multiple different missile tests for many days in a row with various different ballistic missiles, which, like I said, has a huge risk behind it because this could be a smokescreen to launch attacks on Israel. It could be. And they could be trying to wear Israel down so that way they think that Iran's conducting tests, but actually, in the coming days, it could be a real attack that Iran is launching under the cover of a test. So I would say, generally speaking, I'm with the 33%. I think Iran will eventually get so scared and so panicked and tired of waiting, knowing that an attack is imminent on their soil, that they will launch probably a preemptive attack on Israel or the U.S. bases in the region. So I'm actually with the 33%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I'm generally with the 33%. I think that the Iranians are trying to lean towards some form of preemptive attack, or at least the insinuated threat of it, by once again trying to pressure the United States into giving more concessions and negotiations and backing off. I'm not really sure if they would want to actually conduct a real preemptive attack against the United States, but they do want the United States to believe that they may be capable and willing to do that. And if they are, and we believe that we are not ready yet inside the Middle East to conduct actions against Iran, offensive or defensive, that might put even further pressure on the United States to say that our forces would generally be overwhelmed within the area, at least right now, and we ought to see about giving them even further concessions in the next round of talks so that we can try and avoid an embarrassing situation to where U.S. forces might possibly be overwhelmed in the Middle East. That's generally what they're trying to game plan, at least into U.S. leadership's mindset at the moment, but it might not really turn out that way. If anything, it might be a little bit late for them to start trying this pressure tactic, because U.S. forces are a lot stronger in the area right now than they have been in prior weeks. And, it doesn't really seem to me like that would turn out all too well for him. However, we do know that strikes will not be happening right now because the Vice President of the United States has apparently arrived within Azerbaijan and will also be arriving in Armenia in a couple of days after this. We saw that a large amount of flights were being conducted in Azerbaijan today to bring the security detail and vehicles that would be used by the Vice President on his visit. And considering that he's in wildly close proximity to Iran, he's literally right in the country just north of their border, we believe that it would be unlikely at the moment that the Iranians will conduct any form of the United States will conduct any form of an attack against the Islamic Republic of Iran, at least here soon. If any attacks are conducted, the Vice President will be well out of the area by the time that happens. While that's going on, though, the Iranians are dealing with some other significant dealings, at least within their own country, as we have been able to hear the announcement of further NOTAMs and ballistic missile tests that are being conducted within the Islamic Republic of Iran. And not only that, we have also been able to see that the Islamic Republic of Iran has apparently been witnessing some form of unidentified drones, or at least the civilian populace doesn't know what kind of drones these are. They may be Iranian, we're not entirely sure, but here's the clip.
یکی دو تا سه تا این بالا سر خود من چهار تا پنج تا شیش تا
That little dot up there, by the way, is what they are calling the drone.
یه دونه اونجا یه دونه اونجا
Not really a lot to talk about in this clip, though. I mean, it really is just a dot up in the sky. To be entirely frank with y'all, it could be anything. But moving on from that, we've also heard that the domestic situation within Iran is worsening. In the city of Mashhad, within the very northeastern part of the country, Iranian officials have made a very concerning announcement. The CEO of the Mashhad Water Company says only 2% of Mashhad's dam's water storage remains, meaning that the city is down to 2% water capacity. That doesn't sound good. Sounds like they're running out of water basically nationwide at this point, a lot like they have in Tehran. And it's a little bit interesting that they're getting wildly aggressive and threatening to everyone in the world while they're in a literal humanitarian crisis, because water is one of the basic resources needed for human survival, and they're running out of it. And if you run out of that, people can't really drink anything else. Have y'all tried drinking motor oil? I have, and it's not good. I'm just kidding, by the way. I've never done that. That would be absolutely stupid. But moving on out of Iran and on into the coast of India, we also have a very interesting development about the Iranians today that actually has to do with India. India went out last night and seized 3 Iranian tankers, including these 3 seen in the pictures right here, which I gotta say aren't really the largest tankers that I've ever seen in the world. But, I mean, they're still significant enough, and the fact that it was 3 of them alone is something crazy. According to an official statement, on the 6th of February of 2026, this is from the Indian Coast Guard, by the way, the Indian Coast Guard busted an international oil smuggling racket in a meticulously coordinated sea-air operation. The syndicate exploited mid-sea transfers in international waters to move cheap oil from conflict-ridden regions to motor tankers, evading duties owed to coastal states. Acting on tech-enabled surveillance and data pattern analysis, the ICG intercepted 3 suspected vessels approximately 100 nautical miles west of Mumbai. Sustained rummaging, electronic data corroboration, and crew interrogation exposed the modus operandi and a global handler network. The vessels known to frequently change identity are being escorted to Mumbai for further legal action, reinforcing India's role as a net provider of maritime security and guardian of the rules-based international order. That was the statement by the Indian Coast Guard, and I'm not going to lie, folks, I'm not really a huge fan of the Republic of India, but I will say that the Indian Coast Guard does make a pretty decent summary of what they did. Like, that was a fairly well-written one, all things considered. Nevertheless, though, it does appear that the Republic of India is now taking actions against the Iranians, which is a little bit interesting because if y'all remember, not too long ago, India was really leaning heavily into BRICS again. And if you go through the list that BRICS includes, it includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And Iran is not in BRICS, but Iran is largely considered to be an unofficial member of the BRICS alliance. And so a lot of people are wondering, how in the hell did basically a BRICS-aligned nation, a heavily BRICS-aligned nation like Iran, end up running into odds with India and having India seize 3 of their tankers today just off of the coast of Mumbai? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so why has India seized these 3 alleged Iran-linked tankers that also appear to be sanctioned by the United States, at least according to what we've heard? So why did India do it? 46% said India did it for their own reasons, while 42% said India did it on behalf of the United States, and 7% said we need more information first. And this is very out of character for India to do this. This is not something we were expecting India to do. So that is interesting just on that fact. I would say it sounds like India did it on behalf of the United States because while they seize these tankers, they're also cutting off oil purchases being made out of Russia. So that's also something else as well that the U.S. has requested, basically demanded that India do, which they appear to be complying with. So it appears that India is even going a step further and seizing other vessels that are involved with Iran and also indirectly with Russia, perhaps. And they're doing this for us, which is kind of strange. So I'm with the 43%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'm actually with the 43% as well. It does appear that they largely did it for the United States because these sanctions were just recently implemented against these tankers, and the Indians have already started to seize these ships literally just days after the sanctions were put into place. So I would have to say it definitely looks like they're trying to generally work with the United States. And I also have to add in, and this might change a lot of people's opinions here, the other major news that's come out of India today, that apparently India is now dropping Russian oil again. And from what we've heard, India's largest refiners, Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, and Reliance Industries, have stopped buying Russian oil again, according to a Reuters report. According to sources, the refineries are rejecting offers for shipments scheduled for March and April. The reason is apparently political, as the U.S. and India have moved closer to a trade package, announcing a framework agreement that they aim to finalize by March. For the Russians, this is obviously bad news. Even countries that were still profiting from sanctions workarounds are now reassessing the risks and choosing not to side with the Russians. So it appears that with these two combinations of news combined, both the fact that the Indian refineries are now once again dropping Russian oil, and also the fact that the Indians are now seizing Iranian oil tankers, generally seems like India is now turning tail again, much like they did in the earlier part of last year, and instead of running towards BRICS, they're running back towards the West. So I guess their stay in BRICS was very inhospitable, apparently. Apparently they didn't really enjoy it too much, because they dropped us like we were hot, and they went straight into BRICS, and now they're dropping BRICS like it's hot again, and they're going right back to the United States. So, no, very interesting sort of development. I don't really know what to make of it, to be entirely honest with y'all. And to be entirely frank, India's foreign policy doesn't really seem to be that well concerted or orchestrated, so we'll have to generally wait and see how this turns out, because this could turn out as a nothing burger, and they could immediately flip on us again and go right back to BRICS, or they might stay with us for the long term, which then means that if they do that, then I generally won't have too much of a problem with India, because India will be working towards common American and Western interests, as long as they don't turn their back and backstab us the second time like they did last year. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that at the moment right now? I know this poll is fresh, but what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so now the reports are claiming that India is now refusing to buy Russian oil amid U.S. pressure, and now India is even going as far as to refuse to even hear Russian offers of selling oil to India. What are your thoughts about that? 46% said India was forced to abandon Russia, not voluntarily, but they were forced to do so, while 26% said India voluntarily abandoned Russia, and 23% said India is simply deceiving the West and they will flip back momentarily. So the way I perceive this is India is playing both sides. They're trying to create a bidding war between the Russians and the United States. Right now, the U.S. appears to be winning that bidding war, so India has generally abandoned Russia voluntarily while they're getting concessions from the United States. But if Russia comes back and makes them an offer that they can't refuse, that's so good that they can't turn it down, then I would not be surprised that India dropped the United States again and went back to Russia. That's a very treacherous thing to do, by the way, because they'll end up pissing both sides off before it's over with, and they might have trouble from both Russia and the United States. So, me personally, I don't really trust the Indian government at all. To be perfectly honest, I put the Indian government in the same category as the Turkish government. You got to be very, very careful because they operate very treacherously. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. I don't really trust the Indian government all too much, and also due to our own personal experiences with having to deal with India and Pakistan during the India-Pakistan border wars, my general affinity for any sort of a diplomatic relation with either of those countries heavily decreased during that period of time, just due to the fact of how nonsensical it seems the public discourse in India and Pakistan is, even compared to the United States. Outside of that, though, I'd have to say that generally, I believe that they're trying to voluntarily abandon Russia for now because it might be something that they're now gaming out to be in their best interest to do. But that means that India's allegiances are very flexible. And if it no longer is that beneficial for them to be aligned with the United States, they'll immediately hop ship and run right back into BRICS again, like they did last year. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because I wouldn't really put a lot of stock into this, at least for now. It sounds like a good development. I will say it's promising sounding, but say in a couple of months this could all be reversed, and then at that point this will be all for naught, and we're still back at square one like we were just a couple of weeks and months ago. So moving us on out of that, we are going to be moving on into
Israel, because we've been able to get big news. Israel's getting a new Burger King.
I'm just kidding. They're getting a brand new interceptor system. They are getting the Arrow 4. Whoa.
Oh.
Wow. Whoa. Whoa. The Arrow 4
Look at
is
that slow-mo shot. Whoa.
the Arrow 4 is going to replace the Arrow 2. Wow.
Can this withstand all those little cheap drones that they get fired at?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. It seems like a very expensive system.
Yeah, this is for intercepting like exo-atmospheric weapons. Basically, it's like a terminal high altitude air defense system, like a THAAD almost. Basically, that's basically what it is. It'll replace the Arrow 2 in service, but still, this leaves a great deal of vulnerabilities. And the fact that Israel still doesn't have any built-in air defense systems to deal with drones effectively. They don't have any of those. They have the Iron Dome, which cannot deal with the volume of drones that are fired at Israel. They then have the David Sling, which is a medium-range air defense system that also can't deal with the flood of drones that attack Israel. And then they have the Arrow 2, which is incredibly limited in number, and also the Arrow 4, which is wildly limited in number, and also wildly expensive. And it's not even designed to be able to shoot down drones. It's more so for exo-atmospheric interceptions. So I don't know what it is with the Israelis and these obsessions that they have with missile-based interceptors, but they got to get with the times, old man. Like, these things are way behind the times. They need gun-based interceptors or air defense systems, because otherwise they're screwed when the Iranian drone swarms come back for them again. Because the last time we had to defend them out the wazoo with an endless amount of U.S. Air Force assets, along with the Jordanians, basically using all of their air defense interceptors to just try and give the Israelis a hope and a hell of possibly evading or shooting down as many of these as they could before they hit Israel. And that didn't really turn out all too well during the last time. So, maybe they need to get with the times, because the times, they are a-changing, like the song goes, and it doesn't really seem like they're getting with it. But anyways, moving on out of the Middle East and Southeast Asia, I do have some additional news to get y'all Diego Garcia in Australia, which generally have to do with Indo-PACOM and CENTCOM. First off, we were able to confirm that there is more military action that's going on at Diego Garcia. According to these succulent Chinese satellite reels, they have revealed the U.S. is preparing its key Indian Ocean bomber base for operations against Iran. Mizar Vision imagery shows a missile destroyer, an Arleigh Burke-class missile destroyer, that is, currently docked at Diego Garcia as the buildup continues. China has reportedly been helping Iran with intelligence and tracking U.S. assets movements in the Middle East, and this appears to clearly show that. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that the U.S. is increasing the number of nuclear attack submarines that we have available within Australia, as we're now going to be deploying 4 submarines to bases in Australia, such as HMAS Sterling, in order to increase deterrence against the Chinese within this area of the Pacific, which is always good to hear, and it's great to see that we're diverting assets towards the Chinese. But moving on out of the Southeast Asian region, it's time for us to start meandering our way on over to the United States, because we're about to be getting to all the big news out of Ukraine, and that'll be here in just a little bit. But before we get to America, we have one little clip, a new one, a fresh one. We were able to witness today, folks, the first footage of an Algerian Air Force Su-57. Oh, listen to that thing.
Well, it's definitely not stealth.
It's definitely not quiet. That's for damn sure.
Look at that thing go, that Sukhoi.
It's going to be straight up with that whistling sound. You don't even need a radar. You can just stand outside and go, bearing 270, altitude 10,000 feet, hit it. Like, you know, it's like...
That's like the modern day version of the Aztec death whistle right there installed on that thing.
Man, you know, it sounds like a Vulcan bomber from, like, the Cold War that the British used to operate, you know, with, like, that Vulcan howl. It sounds a lot like that. It's like, and also on top of that, folks, what's even more ironic about this stealth fighter is that it has the radar cross-section of an F-15. So it's not stealth. It's just called stealth, because the Russians like to do that sort of stuff, where they call something something, but it's not that. Like, they'll call a stealth aircraft stealth, and it's not stealth. And they'll call a hypersonic missile, but it's actually not hypersonic. And they do that with everything. But anyways, moving on from that clip, and on out of that little area of Algeria, it's now time for us to get on into the Americas. First off, we were able to see that a CIA C-130 took off today for Caracas in Venezuela. Look at that C-130 painted solid white. That lets you know it's with the CIA. That's very telling right there. Very, very telling. And also we can see it's a Bank of Utah trustee. And anything out of Utah is CIA affiliated. I mean, if you ever hear or listen to anyone who lives in the state of Utah, they're most likely working or affiliated with the CIA. It's a high likelihood. But anyways, moving on from that little bit of news, and on out of that area, and on up into Veracruz inside of Mexico, we also were able to hear that the Mexicans are getting up a couple of their naval support ships to send 814 tons of humanitarian aid to Cuba today, amid the intensifying humanitarian crisis caused on the island by the U.S. economic pressure. The vessels have departed from Veracruz and are expected to arrive within 4 days. And a lot of people might be wondering, well, how bad could it be in Cuba? I mean, it can't be that bad. It's pretty bad. As of today, they have effectively shut down their only international airport inside of the entirety of Cuba, which is the Jose Marti International Airport. And we were able to hear that earlier in the day, they were saying, we're running out of aviation fuel, and starting tomorrow, we're literally going to be completely out of fuel, and we will not be able to keep international aircraft flying or get them out of the country if they land here. Just an hour before the stream went live, they issued a NOTAM over that, because there is no jet fuel available in the entirety of Cuba now. So a very interesting development here, and it does appear that there is going to be a larger humanitarian situation that will be developing in Cuba, because they have completely suffered a collapse of their national infrastructure system due to the fact that they have no fuel. So with that in mind, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are people thinking the U.S. is going to be doing next?
Okay, so Cuba is having big problems. When you have to issue a NOTAM because you can't have any more flights coming to your airport inside of Cuba, that's a bad thing, because they are out of aviation fuel. They can't refuel the jets. They can't sell anybody any fuel to even leave the island. So that's a bad trouble right there. So what will the U.S. do next? Because the reason why they're having this fuel shortage is because the U.S. has started a fuel blockade on the island. So what happens? 69%. said the U.S. will just let Cuba crumble, while 19% said the U.S. will move militarily against Cuba, and 7% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I believe the U.S. is currently taking a passive approach. They're going to let Cuba crumble. But the problem with that is it's not like the Cuban economy has anywhere to fall from because they're already at rock bottom. The Cuban economy is basically always broke. So I'm not really sure what the U.S. is expecting to happen because they're already pretty much in the gutter. So I'm not really sure. Like, I don't think they're going to move militarily on Cuba. I'm not ruling it out, but that would seem to be a pretty bold move to make, to say the least. It just doesn't seem likely in my intuition. So I'm with the 69%. But Enforcer, what say you?
Anthony, honestly, I have a feeling that the United States is about to put our man on the job. The president of Cuba, the Bolivar of Venezuela, the viceroy of Venezuela, the manager and operator of all Hilton hotels, the greatest and most ignominious Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, on the case. Because if there's anything that you have to ensure these days, it's that Marco Rubio gets another royal title.
Yeah, he's no longer a little Marco. He graduated to big Marco after he got his 7th job. Congratulations, sir.
He is Marco the Bolivar. Like, he is no longer meddling in puny topics like the Department of State. The Department of State's a side job for him these days. He's got more important things going on. And we also cannot forget that he has been vested with the governorship of Minnesota in the interim period, and will be setting up a Democratic governance within that region here soon. Long live the great Bolivar Rubio. But outside of that, all jokes aside, I have a feeling the U.S. is just going to sit back and let the Cubans crumble. They might actually try and force the Cubans to try and make a deal. Which, now that I say that, I got so exasperated even saying that. But they're probably going to try and make the
deal
Cuban...
for what?
A deal to open up Cuba for U.S. investments, something like that. Let us build resort properties or something along those lines. Who knows? But I'm sure they'll be shooting for some sort of a deal, I'm sure.
I'm not sure if they have anything to deal in, to be honest. I mean, the only thing that they have is their land. I mean, unless the U.S. is going to tell the Cuban government to evacuate the country and we're simply going to have the land, I'm not really sure what we could have. I mean, the cigars would be nice, but we don't really need those. And also, their infrastructure is in shambles, so they require a lot of work. So I'm not really sure what they have to offer at this point. Also, the Cuban government's extremely hostile to the United States. They're not going to work with us whatsoever. It's going to be the same as the Venezuela situation.
The thing that you're not mentioning, though, Matthew, is that they have prime real estate. Imagine building a dollar...
I mentioned that. I said the land.
Yeah, well, but yeah, Matthew, imagine building a Dollar General and a high-end resort in that, though.
Dollar General, that might be a little too rich.
Maybe. It might be, actually. But I mean, there is a little bit of value to be had in Cuba. Like, you could open it up to tourism. And when I mean tourism, I mean U.S. invested and operated tourism. And there would be some money involved there. And they might be going for a deal like that. And I know that sounds stupid because it's like, well, that doesn't really mean all too much. And there's not really a lot to get out of that. But you do have to remember that the U.S. has been making some pretty goofy deals for a minute now. And so it's not out of the question that we would make a deal like that because, there's nothing that, like, we have to remember, Matthew, that in the White House right now, there is a giant golden plaque on the wall with this policy. No matter how stupid the deal, we must make it, for deal making is king. And that is basically the policy right now. So they could do a policy like that and make a deal with Cuba that would be basically pointless and then say it's like a $20 trillion deal or something along those lines.
Maybe so, possibly. I just have a feeling that at this point, I think the U.S. would really like to invade Cuba, but I'm not sure if they really want to do that because, of course, that has a lot of implications. Like, even if it would be militarily easy to take Cuba because they don't really have much of a military, it would have political implications behind it because China and Russia have interest in Cuba, and it might cause problems. So the next best thing that the United States can do is simply cause hell on the Cuban government, which is what they're doing. doing. I mean, they can't fly anything in and out of the country at this point because the U.S. has blockaded all the fuel. So from this point forward, what do they do? The problem is, I think the U.S. is not understanding, though, is Cuba is going to have to get help from somewhere. I see Mexico is coming to their aid a little bit. They're sending humanitarian ships to Cuba as we speak. They're currently en route. But this might also cause China or Russia to chum up to Cuba even more to help them out. They might end up sending aid to Cuba as a result of this. So I don't know what the U.S. is expecting to do once the Russians or Chinese show up, because they probably will under these circumstances.
Yeah, I would have to say it certainly does appear that that might be the case, but also at the same time, we could see that some military action is taken against the Cuban government because they are wildly weak, and considering that they don't even have any national infrastructure right now, dealing with the Cuban army, which is almost non-existent as well, would be pretty easy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly, it would just mainly be the political implications behind it about what Russia or China might do in response to it. Even if they don't do something necessarily directly against U.S. forces in Cuba, if we decided to invade the place, they might decide, okay, well, we're going to do something reciprocal and go invade Taiwan since the U.S. just invaded Cuba. They might think like that.
They could think like that. That is possible. But also, let me see if I can show you what Cuba looked like back in the 1950s, because this was during the time of Bautista. If y'all don't know about Bautista, he's not really a great guy. He was a dictator of Cuba, but still, the Cuba was generally a lot more economically prosperous during that time. If you could really ever say that Cuba was economically prosperous, because it was able to have direct connections with the United States during this period, because Bautista was aligned with the United States, but he would be overthrown during the Eisenhower administration by the uprising led by Fidel Castro. Nevertheless, though, Cuba actually did have some somewhat economic prosperity during that time, but when I say that, that really only extended to Havana and a few other cities inside of the country. Everyone else was still living in poverty, and that's why Fidel Castro had a great deal of support from the local populace in Cuba, was that they viewed it as Fidel Castro will be able to bring the success and wealth of a place like, say, Havana to the whole of the island of Cuba, instead of it just being within a few small cities and generally within the dictator's control. And then Fidel Castro came in, and then he basically ensured that everyone, whether you were in the city or the countryside, was living in abject poverty. And then even the leadership of the country is living in near abject poverty as well. So then everyone got to live and suffer in poverty together. So a little bit interesting with that one, but I have a feeling that the U.S. will probably just sit back and let them crumble for now. This is not a high-intensity situation that demands any action right now, so they might just sit on this one for a little bit and let this transpire, and then act later if they wanted to. So with
You know
that,
what's getting ugly, though? You know what's getting ugly? Since we're in this region of the world right now, we got some problems happening, breaking out right this second in Venezuela, some big problems. We're hearing right now out of Venezuela that opposition channels are saying and reporting that Juan Pablo Guanipa, the leader of the Justice First Party, who was released by authorities earlier today after being held as a political prisoner, was apparently kidnapped at gunpoint tonight in the Los Chorros neighborhood of the Venezuelan capital of Caracas. So that just happened. Heavily armed men showed up and just kidnapped the guy and took him away. So now we're seeing posts from Maria Corina Machado, who's the opposition leader, apparently calling for his immediate release. So things are still out of control heavily inside of Venezuela. I think that's pretty clear from that. So that's a big deal.
I mean, did that have to do with that CIA C-130 that flew in way earlier in the day?
How do you think it's connected?
Well, I mean, it flew in, and then that happened, like, a couple hours later. So, maybe
Oh,
connected.
you don't think? Well, I mean, we wouldn't kidnap, the opposition leader's individual.
Well, why wouldn't we? I mean, like, we basically aligned ourselves with Rodriguez, who is basically just the Maduro regime.
Maybe so. I'm not really. I don't think we can say that the American government kidnapped the opposition individual. I don't think we can make that conclusion. That would be a big jump.
Well, what would that CIA C-130 be doing in Venezuela then?
Now, they could just be showing up to like solidify relations with the current vice president Delcy, that's currently in charge. They could be just solidifying things, perhaps.
But if they were doing that, wouldn't you think they would come in with something that would be for, less manpower, like, like a delegation size group, like say on a private jet, instead of a C-130 that could carry a vehicle and maybe an entire team, a hit team that could go and take someone, like generally you don't bring in a C-130 to bring in a diplomatic delegation team. Usually they would be brought in on, say, some sort of a private jet of some sort.
Possibly so. I mean, why, if America truly wanted to go kidnap this opposition guy here that just got released out of prison, why wouldn't the U.S. just simply contact the Venezuelan government that's currently in charge and say, send out your goons to go get him, kidnap him, and then we'll take him on his way later on? I mean, they could just do something like that, or they could just stay out of it completely and not have any involvement in it, which would probably be the best case.
It could be, but I mean, they could have brought the C-130 here to just have it sitting at the airport, so that way when they grab the guy, the Venezuelan government could then hand him off to the U.S. and then fly him on out. That could also be the case.
Yeah, maybe, possibly so. I just don't know. Like, when the CIA shows up, people get scared, people get skittish because, of course, the CIA is viewed as the boogeyman. But I don't know. I don't know if they would literally just fly a C-130 straight up, like we can see it on ADS-B, and then kidnap the guy and then fly back out with him. I'm not sure. That might be a little bit too on the nose.
Well, I do have to say this, Matthew. Here's something I have to say. What if, considering that we seem to be really aligned right now and kind of favoring Delcy Rodriguez, we basically throw Maria Corina Machado to the wayside, what if the current government in Venezuela said, look, we'll work with y'all a lot more if y'all could stabilize our control of the situation here in Venezuela, so we need to have the opposition leaders removed from the country. And they don't mean killed, they just mean literally grab them and take them out of Venezuela to somewhere else. And so we went, oh, okay, well, we can do that. And then we went down there and we grabbed the guy and pulled him out, so that way we can give a little token to the Rodriguez government, so that way they'll work with the U.S. a little bit more.
Let's see here. And what was that again? And so I was told we need to jump off this topic immediately.
Oh man, we're about to do it like the Russians. Hold up, everyone. I have a phone call. Yes, Mr. Ratcliffe? Yeah. Oh, you said we cannot talk about this topic? Oh, we
Man,
cannot
this
talk.
is a funny topic. This is a funny story you're telling us right here. This is a real funny story.
But I do have to point out, Matthew, this C-130 is a Bank of Utah trustee aircraft. So we might.
What does that mean? Like, what does that even mean? Like, right there on that.
I guess that's just I guess that's the name of the operator.
Huh. That's interesting. So technically, it's a privately owned C-130.
Let me pull that up really quickly. C-130, Bank of Utah trustee. So, Bank of Utah acts as an owner trustee for aircraft, including specialized models like the Lockheed Martin LM-100J, often operated by private contractors. The bank holds title to the aircraft for registration purposes, enabling ownership transfers without disrupting flight operations. Let's see. The LM-100J is used in specialized operations, and the Bank of Utah has been associated with holding these types of aircraft for private owners. So, let's see here. So it appears like, and I'm just going to make this as a hunch, it seems like this Bank of Utah trustee organization generally exists as a company that then contracts these out to the government whenever they need them. That appears to be what the answer is to this online.
Yeah, I think the way it works is that they're not necessarily just working with the government, and we don't even know, like, this may or may not be a government aircraft. We do know that the CIA historically uses front companies. I'm not saying that is a front company, by the way. I'm just saying generally speaking. But they'll use privately registered aircraft for their operations. So sometimes they use Gulfstreams, like private jets. Sometimes they use expired or new military aircraft that are technically not registered to the federal government, so that way they have some plausible deniability. But there's not really too many civilian operators of Hercules. That's really not an aircraft that civilians typically operate, or private companies. So, I mean, it kind of looks like it might be connected to the government, possibly, maybe.
It looks like it would be decently connected to the government, because I've never heard of a C-130. In most instances, folks, it's fairly rare to ever see a C-130 used for air cargo. Like, that's not really common. And outside of that, no one will really have a purpose for a C-130, because it sure as hell is not a passenger plane. So you never see one of these converted for passenger plane operation. So it's a little bit interesting that one flew, and mind you, by the way, that one that flew earlier took off from, I believe it was San Juan in Puerto Rico, and then flew down to Caracas. So, it took off from a place very close currently to U.S. military operations near to the Roosevelt Roads Naval Air Station and at the Luis Munoz Marine International Airport in San Juan. And then it flew off from there, which was generally the head of U.S. operations and Southcom's command during the time that we were conducting significant military operations on Maduro. And then it flew right down to Caracas. And then hours later, this guy ended up being arrested or apprehended by some group in Venezuela.
But here's my thing though. If it was the CIA sending in the special response team or some group like that that does the on the ground operations on behalf of the agency, why would they send them in on something like a C-130? Because I mean, you don't need a C-130 to send in those guys. You can send them in on a Gulfstream or a private jet or something, which would be much nicer, by the way, much more cushiony to send them in that way, and it would not be so conspicuous as sending in basically a military version of an aircraft like this. It wouldn't be so obvious like that. So I don't think it would be. I think this is a little too on the nose.
That's because, Matthew, a C-130 can carry a wide variety of vehicles. And while they could be transporting people, they might also have to have brought a vehicle or two with them. And then a C-130 would be needed to carry these things.
I think just use stuff on the ground. Like they can just borrow some stuff, or they don't need like Humvees and stuff like that for that little operation.
Would you trust getting inside of a Venezuelan car that the Venezuelan government gave to our guys? Hell no. Like, bro, like it's like, what's wrong with
We
the car?
have stuff already in Venezuela, though. We already have stuff in Venezuela,
Oh, that's a C5 Galaxy right there. I thought that was a C-130, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting flight, though, and it's interesting that all of that happened around the same time. Anyways, though, folks, we do have to keep moving on. Also, by the way, I just realized, folks, we've been doing the news for an hour and 40 minutes now. We haven't even gotten to a question segment, and we haven't even checked on how the fundraiser's doing yet, either. Sadly, I can't see it on my computer anymore because of, like, a technical issue with the side screen. But, Matthew, how far has the fundraiser made it tonight, and who are our top donors of the fundraiser so far?
All right, so we may not know what that aircraft's about, and we don't necessarily have to know that, but jumping into our current fundraiser right now, it's currently sitting just shy of $1,900 raised right now of the $2,500 goal. So we are only about $600 away from smashing that goal right there. We're getting very close, and a huge shout to the LSA for donating tonight to a very good fundraiser, which is Nova Ukraine, helping out those Ukrainian citizens day in and day out. And to call off some of our top donors, by the way, we've had a 125 from Tom S., as well as a 120 from Pleasure Burn, and a 100 from Hal Rose, as well as William Longyard, as well as a 100 from ARP Bob, along with Old Warrior Fellow, who put in a 75, and Gunfox, who put in a 50, along with Ella MC Wills Naffo, Heather Fitzgibbon, Diane Merriam, DQ Turkey, as well as Snow White Sigint, and Greg Carrier, Uncle David Other Nephew, and Canby 7X. And a huge shout out, like we always say, to our top donors of the night for helping make this possible, and a huge shout out to everybody that we were not able to call off, because it's all those donations that have added up to the current point it's at, and we were getting extremely close to the goal. Also, by the way, damn, a huge shout out to Barky Bar Dog, by the way, just threw in a 200 as we're speaking about it right now, bringing us up to 2,100 raised. We're only 400 shy of the goal. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to everyone who has supported this fundraiser so far tonight. We are getting incredibly close to that fundraiser goal of $2,500, and we are always greatly appreciative and massively thankful to all of y'all for supporting these fundraisers, because y'all are helping to save lives overseas. And I've always got to say humongous thanks to everyone in the LSA who partakes in these fundraisers, because y'all are helping to save lives over there. And so a humongous thanks to all of y'all once again, both the folks we were able to call off and the folks we weren't able to call off. And with that, folks, we're going to be making sure to take a minute to get to talk to a couple of y'all, at least 3 questions here in the segment, before we move on into the rest of our news, which we have inside of Ukraine. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's jump into some live chat questions proper. And also, by the way, if you have a live chat question for us tonight, you can tag at It's Enforcer Matt in the live chat and put your question behind it. And I will add it to our spreadsheet, and we might have enough time to get to most of them tonight. But jumping to our first one here, this one goes to Marie Jacobs, who said, speaking of India, did India ever make a water rights treaty with Pakistan and finalize that situation?
Nope. Nope. They're still in a water crisis at the moment right now, because Technically, India is still working on the government policy of not a drop of water will go into Pakistani waterways. They haven't really completely finalized that yet, and the truth be told, they do allow a little bit of water into Pakistan still at this point, enough where a crisis isn't being caused inside of Pakistan, but they have never gotten back to creating a new treaty to replace the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. So I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you for support, even on a fundraiser night, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than, wait a minute, hold on a second. Give me just a second here. Let's see here. Okay, so wait a minute. I've got some more information about the guy that got kidnapped in Venezuela.
Oh.
So let's see here. So we're being told, a fellow in Venezuela, an official, said, we denounced that a group of armed individuals intercepted and kidnapped Juan Pablo Guanipa minutes ago. It was a group of approximately 10 unidentified people. They were able to identify a silver Corolla, a white Range Rover, and a Renault. See, I told you, man. I told you. He said, we demand immediate proof of life in his release. So they nabbed him off the street. They pulled up in Rovers, and they pulled off with him, apparently. So that's a Renault. That's kind of interesting, too. Silver Corolla. So we got some possibly maybe rental vehicles, perhaps. Maybe it's somebody's personal vehicles. I would doubt that kidnappers would use personal vehicles. It's probably rentals or something like that. But yeah, so apparently 10 people showed up and got him in these various different vehicles.
But see, it wasn't the Venezuelan government. It was just some goons from who knows where. Seems to me like things are starting to add up here.
But you said that you thought they were using the C-130 to bring in specialized vehicles. And I said, we already have stuff on the ground. I'm not saying it's the CIA that did it, by the way. I don't really think that they were the ones to do it. But it could be simply Maduro government supporters. It could be Delcy doing it because she doesn't want these people causing trouble against her regime.
Could be. It could be. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It's an interesting development, though. We'll have to see if it all ever is connected to the C-130. Because at this point, it's kind of up in the air whether it would or wouldn't be, and I wouldn't really be able to say with any good certainty whether it was or wasn't. But anyways, with that, I hope that...
also, by the way, I got to answer this question real quick. I saw two people ask this question. They said, can a C-130 hold all those vehicles? Trust me, they would not shuttle in on a C-130, a Range Rover, and a Corolla. They definitely not. They're not wasting the resources on that. Yeah, that's a hell of a mixture, by the way. We don't even sell, their Renaults aren't even in the United States. We don't even have those here. So we would not go through all that trouble. If anything, if it was the CIA, hypothetically speaking, they would simply rent vehicles under a pseudonym or something where you can't tell it's the agency renting the vehicles. There's many ways to do that. And they would go use the vehicles, they would dispose of them later, and that would be the end of the story. But they did not shuttle those in, by the way. They were either already in Venezuela or they were already assets that were already on the ground ready to use, one or the other.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And so with that, I hope that addresses that a little development well. Very interesting, I'd say. And with that, we're on to the second question of the segment.
And our second question, also, by the way, a huge shout out to Danny B, by the way. Chef Danny B put in a $50 donation and brought us up to $2,459 raised. We are literally just $40 shy right now of the goal. So getting extremely close to hitting that goal right now. So jumping into our second question, this one goes to Vollinger, who said, would that failed assassination attempt on the Russian general a few days ago, do you think a new Prigozhin has just been created, considering that it seems that Lavrov allegedly might have ordered the hit?
I would doubt it, because this guy has also been so wounded, he's going to be out of the business for good after this. He's going to be retired. So I would say probably not. They've probably taken this guy out of whoever was wanting to get him out of the picture as far as actually running anything. They've largely done that, whether he's still alive or not. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And I also saw someone say, in The Godfather, they had Michael drop his gun right in the Italian restaurant where he killed the crooked cop and the drug dealer who hit his father. But here's the thing, though. That's, one, a movie, and two, things have changed a lot since that movie was made. Because back in the day, especially for the mafia in New York City and places like Chicago, it was fairly often whenever hits were conducted, and we just hit the goal!
All right, let's go. The goal's been hit. They hit the goal. The hitman came through and hit the goal. Look, he's down for the count. A 1, a 2, a 3. He's down. It was a Range Rover. It did a drive-by. Look at that. $2,549 raised right now. This is a massacre, people.
Oh my goodness! And they're making it to the 10, the 5. Oh, touchdown! Oh my lordy! The Seahawks have obliterated the Patriots. Holy moly! Talking about America being weak these days, they got beat by a bunch of birds that hang out at the ports. Like holy moly! But anyways, all jokes aside, folks, I do have to say that is great to see that we've hit the goal. A massive shout out to everyone who supported this fundraiser tonight. Truly an amazing and incredible thing to know that so many people have continued to support these fundraisers through the years, and we have passed another fundraiser goal. And so a huge congratulations to all of y'all so much once again. And really quickly, to get back to the whole thing about how hits are done, the Mafia would drop guns in the middle of wherever the hit was done back in the day, like in the 70s and such. That was a very commonly sort of a known thing that they would do. But the reason why they do that is because they didn't want to take the gun with them outside of the crime scene, because if they were ever caught by police outside and they had a weapon on them with any sort of gun residue on them, or well, you know, fire like gunpowder residue or anything like that, that could generally incriminate them in the crime. Secondly, fingerprinting, or more so DNA evidence and such things as that, and also acid etching to figure out the serial numbers on guns that had their serial numbers removed, really didn't exist back then. So if the gun had its serial number removed and nobody really knew who you were, and you were pretty careful on not getting your fingerprints on those guns because you're wearing gloves, you just drop it off right there and wander off. But nowadays that isn't really the case. Nowadays, most of the time, especially when hits are conducted, that we've seen the Ukrainians do, which is where we get most of our knowledge on this from, they conduct a hit and the gun's never found anywhere. They never drop it right near to where the assassination was done or anything. They wander off. As a matter of fact, the Ukrainians leave absolutely no evidence of the kind of firearm that was used rather than the shell casings. There's no firearm left behind. There's nothing else left behind. It may as well be like the guy just got shot by thin air and there was nothing around him. So the fact that this guy went and tossed a gun into a snow berm right outside the door, and then also threw a pack off into another snow berm that was literally right next to the door, that is not indicative of a normal assassination that is conducted in the present day, especially by anyone who's heavily experienced, like we've seen with the Ukrainian SBU. So while, you know, a lot of people might say, well, that's how it worked in Godfather and such things like that, or that's how it worked on Donnie Bengino when he got bebopped by the Bumzanos or whoever in New York in 1965. That was 1965, and a lot of the criminology sort of technology and abilities that exist today, they were nowhere close to existing back then. So I hope that addresses that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so with that, oh, well, not the night, actually, of the segment, and then we're getting back into the news. So Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, it looks like a C-130 has just left Venezuela. By the way, so, oh my goodness!
I mean,
but anyway.
like, you know, man. I mean, I might have a point here. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little interesting.
It's not, I don't know if it's the same one, but it's definitely a C-130 with the State Department.
Let's see here. What would I need to go under to find that? Let's see. Let's just go under all categories.
I posted on Twitter, by the way, if you're looking for the exact one.
I'm not
It's
seeing
not.
it.
It's not listed with a call sign, by the way.
Oh, okay. Let me go see here. Let me go on Twitter really quickly, folks, and get it. Yep, 46 minutes ago. There it is. That is the same one too. That's an LM-100J, which was the one from the Bank of Utah trustee. That was, yeah. It's heading
It's
back.
also, by the way, that's not their aircraft. By the way, that's some type of holding thing or something like that. So we don't want to keep saying that's their plane or anything.
Well, I mean, like on the earlier one, it looks like it was on there. Like it said right here that it was let's see, call a registration in 139RB, which was registered with the Bank of Utah trustee, and it was specifically a let's see, I think it's an LM-100J, which is the ones that they operate, and this one that left is an LM-100J. And from what I know, I think they're the only company in most of the world.
We'll just say it's privately owned, because we don't want to keep saying that without knowing it for a fact. So let's just say it's privately owned.
We'll just say it's privately owned. Sure, it's privately owned. It's privately owned. So that's what we have at the moment. It appears to be the C-130 that's leaving again, and it also left with what appears to be a Dash 8. A Dash 8 as well, which we never accounted for earlier, which also left. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Sounds like that C-130 might be carrying all of those crappy cars, and that Dash 8's carrying everyone who had to go down there and take care of business.
Who knows? We'll have to find out later.
I mean, you know, who knows? Who's to say? We might have to wait and see sometime here in the future. But anyways, folks, with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of our news. Great heavens, oh, holy moly, and boy howdy. Moving us on into the news that we have out of Ukraine today. We have had quite a lot. Starting us off with the fun ones, first off, we were able to see that there was a crater caused in the town of Klintsy in the Bryansk region from unforeseen circumstances. That's a big crater.
Damn.
Oh. And someone's just rapping in the background the whole time the camera's filming. But moving on from that and on up into the town of Vigonichi, I believe is how that's pronounced, we were able to see that a electrical substation was unfortunately knocked out by what we could only describe as a Chinese firework. It's the Year of the Dragon, everyone. And there goes the substation. Yippee!
What was that? Like, what was that object?
We believe it was a failed Russian surface-to-air missile.
Yeah, it kind of looked like one too. It was kind of short range, at least by the appearance of it.
Yeah, it kind of was. It kind of was. But the substation did not have a good time after that. But let's watch that one more time. It's literally like a firework. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think that might be Russia missiling their own substation, actually.
Oh my god, bro. It's so funny, man. It's just twinkling through the sky. Look at that.
And he wished upon a star.
Makes no difference who you are, man. Like, it's like, man, this is something else right there. So moving us on from that absolutely hilarious clip that's now knocked the entire town out of power, we are going to be moving on down and into the area of Belgrade, where they're now having to conduct civilian evacuations due to the extreme cold and the fact that there's no electricity and heat in the entirety of the city. We've also been able to see that the city of Belgrade, due to the extreme cold and the fact that they can't heat the buildings or even keep the water running, is now suffering burst pipes.
That water sounds like a sonic weapon.
And it kind of does. Call it the discombobulator.
The Russians are getting a little bit wet.
Man, it's tough to be in Russia right now, especially in Belgrade. Moving us on out of Belgrade and on over and into Volgograd, because all the towns in Russia sound very similar. We also were able to see that the town was left without a substation. Watch the techno light show that they're having outside.
Was that the interference you could hear?
I think it was the camera, like the lens maybe or something. But we also got to see the clip right here of the substation exploding.
Oh.
And we also got this one. You can see the substation going up off to the left.
Just insane amounts of lightning in the distance. Like a thunderstorm's rolled in.
Don't worry, everyone. It is just a thunderstorm in perfectly clear skies and weather. No reason to worry.
It's that Ivan with his drum and bass.
Man, and we're not going to stop playing that loud drum and bass.
He's just a rave man, Kathleen. He likes to have a rave. He likes to have a good drink, Kathleen. He's a devil for the drink.
And they certainly are devils for the drink. That we can agree. Also in Novorossiysk, we were able to see an explosion down here as well. As she said, there's a brutal explosion there. This one was brutal. Ой-ой-ой.
Там вот сильно был дым. Короче, я не знаю, это беспилотник вылетел или ракета вылетела. Ну, мама сказала, ракета вылетела. Там был жесткий, прям очень жесткий взрыв был. Прям.
She repeated that it was very brutal and it happened out that way. So we don't know what it is, but something exploded in Novorossiysk, at least according to eyewitness accounts. Moving us on out of those bits of news inside of the Russian Federation, it's now time for us to move on into Ukraine, where we were able to see something wicked today. An F-16 of the Ukrainian Air Force shot down a Russian drone with a 20mm Gatling gun. The M61 Vulcan carried on board.
Летить, сука, гандон.
Here it comes.
Oh. This might went berserk.
Ooh!
Oh.
Get him, boy!
Oh.
Молодец, заебашил!
That was pretty
Man,
sick.
you gotta love it. Is that those little like specialized rockets that we gave Ukraine? The little what are they? APKSS or something like that? Those little specialized rockets.
No, no, my boy. This is something even better. This is the M61 rotary gun. Have you ever seen one, Matthew? Have you?
Are you sure it was the rotary gun that did that?
You could hear it for just a brief second. The little of the gun firing. Because it sounds very much like an A10, just higher pitch because the rounds are smaller. You want to hear it again because you can hear it in the clip. Like right when the drone blows up, you can hear the little of the gun when it fired. Like you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so here it is right here. Listen closely. You heard that?
I don't know. I kind of heard like a bit of a constant rocket motor sound in the background. That's what I heard.
You didn't hear the sound? Listen to it again. Like that sound that was in there, that was the Vulcan's gun.
To me, it sounded more like a rocket.
I don't know how you're getting that out of this camera. Let me get you a sound effect of this gun firing. It's sound. Let me go. Let me go take this off screen so that way I can play a noise.
We'll run a poll on this too.
So here's a sound of M61, just so you can hear it without explosion over it. You see how that sounds just like what was going on when the Shaheed exploded? It's your gun.
I don't know. Like I don't think I really heard that sound, to be honest with you.
And also on top of that, I mean, look at this. When you see the rest of the clip right here, F-16 flying very slow speed when the drone blew up, aircraft very close. It's gone. It is gone. It has to be gone. There's no missile. Because listen to it again. That is gone. I mean, those little high-pitched, high-frequency, little like right there in the explosion, that is definitely M61 Vulcan of the 20mm variety from F-16.
I'm having to go with gun, or no, I'm actually not gun. I'm reading the chat, by the way. I'm having to go with rocket. I didn't really hear the gun sound, me personally.
It is not the gun, Matthew. It's a rotary cannon because its caliber so
Well, that's
large.
a gun.
Well, cannon is a bit bigger, like guns like a machine gun, like from World War II, like P-51. This is big gun. I mean, this is like little brother of A-10 Warthog gun on F-16. Like, this is a big one. But I'd have to say, folks, let's listen to it again. Let's listen to it again. Oh, actually, someone said, slow it down. You're actually a smart man. Who are you? Brandon, you're a smart man. We will slow it down. Let's listen to it at half speed. You see, it sound like gun.
I don't hear the gun.
Let's play it again at normal speed. Oh, you can hear it right there. Literally right there. You can hear like the reverb of it. Listen. That was the gun.
And that's probably the most convincing part. But even at that, though, are we sure that was the gun or was that the phone?
No, that is gun. That is gun. This is like A10, you hear the original rounds impacting, and then you hear the sound of gunfire later, so you hear, and then you hear in the distance, and that's exactly what you heard right here. Listen to it again. I mean, that is gun.
Okay, now that part right there would actually make me think it might be a gun. So yeah, maybe possibly it is. I didn't hear it though before. Like before the thing exploded or right as it was exploding, I didn't hear any gun sound. But that little reverb right there, that does sound characteristic of a like an A10 Gal gun or something like that.
It is M61 Vulcan gun. Good gun, great gun. I highly recommend for home defense. But anyways, as we can see, the Ukrainians did use it for home defense here pretty good. And I mean, that was a cool clip. But moving on from that, and on out of that little bit of news right there, it's time for us to move on up into the Sumy Oblast, where we're also able to see the 71st Huntsman unit attacking Russian forces. Oh, what do we have here? My heavens. Oh, Russia tried to throw a washpan at the drone. He actually hit it. Well, that's the first time I've ever seen a Russian throw something at the drone and it actually saves them. That's interesting right there. But moving on from that, and on down into our location unknowns, we also got some very interesting clips down here. First off, we were able to see the Ukrainians hit a artificial speed bump. Oh, we'll have to mute that. But here comes the speed bump out of the sky. and they just kept going. It was like nothing really. That's the end of that clip. And moving on from that, we also got another clip showing us the Russians' newest armor modification for their tanks. They call it the garden shed, and at this point, I think it is a garden shed. Look at that.
That is pretty stupid looking. That's literally like a Home Depot shed made of metal. Also, what is that? Rubber, like, stoppers or something around it? What's that? Like rubber sheeting?
It looks like, yeah, it looks like rubber. Like, dude, do they have flail? Yeah, dude, these things that are sticking out the sides are flails that are spinning with chains on them.
What the hell? Like, that's a death trap and a half. That's going to take some Russians out, I can promise you. Oh, look at this. They got a whole mechanism for it.
Oh
Look
my
at that.
god. This is ridiculous.
That's like a weed eater.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is deadly. Oh my god. You can't even see the thing. Holy crap, bro. That's going to take... Oh my god, it's fast.
Oh my god. This thing is ridiculous.
This is the Russian Weed Whacker 3000. What is that for? Oh, it's remote controlled?
Yes. It is
Oh my
remote
god.
controlled.
Oh my god. It's the RC Weed Whacker of death. Look at this
Bruh,
thing.
it's going along the ground. It's literally like edging the ground with the weed eater attached. Look at it. Oh my god.
My gosh.
Bro, they're gonna hit this thing with one FPV drone and probably knock it out because the armor sheeting is like 10 millimeters thick or less. It's basically nothing. So this thing is literally just a flail device, a 360 flail that could be defeated by an FPV drone probably. Is really dumb, honestly. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, but the Russians just introduced this thing. It's brand new. So we'll see how it does, and we'll see how many the Ukrainians blow up in about a couple of weeks. But we also got the Russian casualty report for the day, and holy moly, 5 Bobcats!
Holy cow, 5 Bobcats in a day? I mean, what are they doing out here? That's crazy work. I'd like to see it, though, but tell us more. Tell us more.
And Miss Nisa, keeper of the records, has stated, troop loss rises above 1,000 after 5 days in the 700s. All categories are below the 7-day averages except for 5 Bobcats, which is high for a special day, for a single day, I mean. And over the past 24 hours, we have been able to confirm that 1,040 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 1 tank, 1 APC, 8 artillery pieces, 24 cruise missiles, 468 drones, 60 fuel trucks, or in supply trucks, and 5 Bobcats. All in all, a pretty decent day, and good to see. Moving us on out of our location unknowns, we're now going to be moving on and down into the area of the town of Chuhunivka, as the Ukrainians have liberated the town today and pushed the Russians out. Before long, the Ukrainians will win this war. Give them about another 50 years of taking one town every month, and they'll win. I'm using the very same line of reasoning that the people who support Russia do, where it's like, Russia takes one town every 5 months. If we give them 300 years, they'll eventually get the Kyiv. But moving on down into the Severonsky Forest, we also get to see the Ukrainians knocking out some Russians in the Sigma Mail unit. Oh, we'll say the Russian sees the drone. He's trying to make a run for it. But running never works. You can run, well, you can't run and you really can't hide. Ugh. Here comes another. Oh, sleeping on the job is never preferred.
That was kind of strange. They actually kind of concealed their thermal signature a little bit somehow.
It is because they were cold. Cold as the grave. And that became literal.
You don't think they're using that invisibility cloak, do you? You remember how the Russians had that little invisibility cloak blanket they had for a while?
Oh, no, I don't think it was that, because that was like one of those like survival blankets, like the ones that are very reflective in normal cameras. I don't think they'd want to use them, because if they ever tried to, while you couldn't see them on infrared, you would see them plain as day on a normal camera at that point. So
Interesting.
You know, that's what I think. I might be wrong, though. But moving on from that and down into the area of the Konstantinivka front, we also get to see in Chasiv Yar that the 18th Brigade was striking Russian forces down here as well. Take a look at this. We see the drone flying on in, and oh, look, it's a Russian. Well, no longer. We can also see them targeting a UAZ-469. Actually, that is not a UAZ-469. That's a lot of Neva. And we can also see them getting a Desert Cross ATV. And also a A Russian soldier. Risky soldat, as they call them. Oh, look at that. There he is. Hit them, boys. Oh, and they're going to.
Also, by the way, it looks like we got some movement from Moron tonight as well.
The
I was
morons are on
noticing
the
that
move?
Yeah, actually they are. Apparently the Morons went to Qatar. Also, by the way, the Morons are the people stationed at at Moron Air Base, by the way, or Moron Air Base, as some people call it.
Man, I freaking love Moron. Man, like, Moron is a cool place. What do we got coming out of here? Oh, well.
It landed. I think it landed in Qatar already. It appears to be a stratotanker.
What is this right here? A U.S. Military or government Gulfstream C-37 flying out of Rota. That's interesting. I wonder what's up with that. What is up with that? Let's see here. Let me just get on our military and government category. Huh.
Well, don't tell me you're going to think they're kidnapping somebody there too.
I don't know, bro. Watching like 30 minutes, you'll hear someone just went missing in Spain, and we'll be like, "Oh," we'll be like, "Oh, so that's what's up today." That's interesting.
What if it's like the U.S. just goes around to every single country on the planet, kidnaps the leader, and then brings them to the negotiating table and says, "All right, we're ready to make a global deal." It's like it's the worst case scenario. This is a nightmare.
Better yet, man, they get all the world leaders like kidnapped, and they put them in that new ballroom in the White House, and then the president comes in. All right, everyone, time for tea. And they have them all dressed up like dolls or something like that. And he's like, oh, you want some tea? Oh, that would be great. Here you go. It's what if they were doing that instead? You never know.
He's crazy. He's crazy.
and then you'll know when Rubio's about to enter a room because you'll hear the church bell. Bang, and they hear Domekia, and they'll be like, introducing the Bolivar of Venezuela, the president of Cuba, the governor of Minnesota, owner of the Hilton Hotels. It'll sound like there's a WWE wrestler coming in, and then it's just Rubio. He just comes in, hi everyone, and he sinks into the couch as far as he can go. Oh man. Anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see near the Konstantinivka front today that they also hit some more Russian forces in the 156th Mechanized Brigade. Look, they hit that guy quick. Oh, he's trying to make a run for it. Didn't work.
Also, by the way, I saw Sean Williams say the world leaders want to play into Squid Games. I don't think they want to be honest. But I don't know if y'all heard this or not, but North Korea executed some teenagers the other day because they happened to watch a bootleg version of Squid Game from a flash drive. They actually executed teenagers, like legit, for watching that, which is pretty, obviously pretty horrible. But that's a real story from, I think, 24 hours ago.
Man, those kids should have known better because, I mean, they're literally living in the real life version of Squid Game on a national level. Like, I'd have to say, like, that, like, it's really crazy, folks, how tough the punishments are for basically every crime in North Korea. Most of them are generally some form of capital punishment resulting in death. And it's like, man, it's like you would think that those kids would know better than to even risk trying to watch a show like that, knowing that it could be death.
Yeah. You know, there's a whole underground in North Korea that passes around USB flash drives. That's the only way they can generally get that information. But the problem is nobody has a computer to really play it on. So they have to go to these places where the computers are available, plug the flash drive in. But what the pitiful North Koreans don't understand is when they do that, it notifies a network that something unknown has been connected, and they get caught doing that. So they also, I think they use CDs as well. I'm just not sure how they're playing it. Like, that's the part I don't understand, is how they're actually playing the material from the drive. But that's a whole thing. Like, there's a whole black market for materials like that.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I've heard that they sometimes give out like little like viewing laptops or something like that for people to watch it on. But then others like will try and like plug it into a computer, and then they get caught quite easily that way. But if they ever see light coming out of your building, like from like say a TV screen or something like that, party officials will know that you're watching something because most places in North Korea don't have any electricity. So seeing any sort of light coming out of a building late at night, because by law you have to keep your windows wide open to where people can just look straight into your house if they want to, so that way you can't hide anything. So if they ever see any light coming out from inside of your house, they know you're watching something or doing something illegal. And then they'll come in and bust you and basically turn the place inside out to find whatever it was that you were doing and then execute you for it. But anyways, we got to see right here, down near Toretsk, the Ukrainians were also continuing to target and hit Russian forces. And just look at them go. I mean, they're doing work, hitting antennas, supply trucks, armored buhankas, non-armored buhankas, Russians hiding in the cities.
The unfortunate part is when they were trying to watch the Squid Games from the flash drive, apparently the unfortunate part is they thought it was a documentary. They didn't understand it was a series for entertainment. They thought it was a documentary. So that's kind of a little bit sad.
Man, that is sad, honestly. Man, like, they were probably sitting there like, dang, this is like just daily life. This is kind of boring. It's like, man, it's like, that's honestly pretty unfortunate for him. But anyways, moving on from that and on out of the area Turetsк and down towards Pokrovsk, we also get to see that the Ukrainians at the 68th Jaegers were also taking out Russian comms that the Russians had tried to set up on some of the abandoned and destroyed apartment buildings within southern Pokrovsk. Oh, and they're about to hit the antenna. Oh, and they got it. A dead on hit. Very nice. We love to see.
Man, well, Sergeant Sagi said, imagine if you got caught watching reruns of Seinfeld. That'd be the worst case scenario. I couldn't imagine being put to death for watching some Seinfeld. Like that would be one of the worst ways to go out. Like I would rather watch anything other than the Seinfeld to be put to death over something like that. It's like, could it be like a better movie? Like could it be Interstellar? Like the North Korean government says, oh, we're going to get them because they watched Interstellar. So okay, that's fair enough, but not Seinfeld.
Man, like when you like get executed for watching Seinfeld, I guess like the Seinfeld little like harpsichord thing plays or something like I would hate that honestly. Like that would be the worst irony. You know what would be even more ironic?
What are you doing, Kramer?
Man, you know what would be even more ironic is that if you got executed for watching the episode where Seinfeld is like ripping off the cable company and then he dreams that like he gets shot and killed by like the cable police or whatever for ripping off the cable and Kramer's holding him and he says, "What did you do to my cable boy?" Like, dude, that would be the most irony if that was the episode that you were watching when you were caught, and then you got executed for it. You literally lived out the episode, basically.
Yeah, we're sitting there salivating over the soup that the soup man was serving or something like that. Like sitting there like, oh man, like I love some of that soup. And then all of a sudden they bust in your place and bust on you and then try to come bring you into custody or something. That'd be awful.
Oh my lord! If someone just dissed on Seinfeld, don't sit there and say Seinfeld was bad. Seinfeld was one of the best sitcoms out there ever. But anyways, moving on from that, we also get to see that more Russian forces were hit down in the south near Huilopol. We see them getting on in there, getting in through the hole in the roof, the large hole in the roof that makes it easy to hit all of these Russian cars. Oh, look, there's a Russian back there. There's a couple of them. And a horse. 2 horses, actually. It's kind of crazy they keep the horses with the cars.
The kind of the unfortunate part about that Seinfeld soup episode about the dude who was doing the soup. It's like I think Kim Jong-un can really identify with that guy a lot because he tells the North Korean people all the time, "No soup for you." In fact, no food at all. Like he just holds all the food back while he stuffs Twinkies in his face the entire day. So yeah. Also, by the way, what are people talking about? What are people saying? What? Oh, yeah, hey yo, like what? Are you seeing this in the chat? What are people talking about?
Let's see here. Which one is
what
it?
are people talking about?
Which one is it?
Bust on you.
Oh, I think you just said that a second ago. You're like they bust on
I didn't
you
say
and
that.
get you. I think
I said they busted in.
Can we get a replay on that? I think we can get a replay on that. You want a replay on that?
Yeah, I mean, we can go for a replay. I don't recall saying that.
All right,
maybe I slipped up.
Which one is it? We turn that up and then. Oh, I think if that was the episode, and like when you like get executed for watching Seinfeld, I guess like the Seinfeld little like harpsichord thing plays or something like I would hate that honestly. Like that would be the worst irony. You know what would be even more ironic?
What are you doing, Kramer?
Man, you know what would be even more ironic is that if you got executed for watching the episode where Seinfeld is like ripping off the cable company and then he dreams that like he gets shot and killed by like the cable police or whatever for ripping off the cable and Kramer's holding him and he says, "What did you do to my cable boy?" Like, dude, that would be the most irony if that was the episode that you were watching when you were caught and then you got executed for it. You literally lived out the episode basically.
Yeah, I'm salivating over the soup that the soup man was serving or something like that. Like, oh man, like I love some.
I don't think that was far enough back right there. I think it was even farther back. So sadly, I don't think we'll be able to find that answer here on air. At least
I don't recall saying that. I don't remember saying anything about busting on anybody. I don't remember that.
A lot of people are saying that you did say that though. So maybe you did.
I mean, I'm not going to call the audience liars. Maybe I did say that. I mean, perhaps I said that. Maybe so. People say a lot of things. I mean, people always say they're having dinner with Matt. They always say dinner with Matt. It's just a figure of speech. They don't actually mean they had dinner with Matt. They just mean that they wanted to have dinner with Matt.
Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. But moving on out of the Zaporizhia front, we are going to have to move on over, unfortunately, to Odessa. We did see the Russians did land hits on residential buildings last night in Odessa, with this clip showing one of the larger hits recorded last night. We have been able to hear that there has been a significant amount of wounded and killed Ukrainian civilians from last night's attacks, which the Russian Federation is still continuing against the Ukrainian population every single day. So with that, it is time for us to move on up into Kyiv, folks, to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, the President Volodymyr Zelensky, on this day of 1446 of the war. And so, if you give me a minute, here is the... No, stop. Here we go. Here is the speech. Peach!
Шановні українці, українки, сьогоднішній день був майже весь присвячений відновленню в наших регіонах. Всюди залучені необхідні сили громад, комунальних служб, енергокомпаній. ДСНС України, окрім реальної допомоги у всіх регіонах, яка вже надається, формує ще резервні сили. Це зведені енергетичні групи, які зможуть оперативно підключатись на додачу до вже наявних сил. Працюють і бригади Укрзалізниці, більше 40 бригад, і кількість буде збільшена до 60. Вони залучаються саме для роботи в столиці. Зараз саме в Києві досі найбільш складно по більшості показників. Це стосується і електрики, і опалення. Нафтогаз теж збільшить кількість бригад, які допомагають саме Києву. МВС України забезпечує роботу достатньою на сьогодні кількості пунктів обігріву. Більше 200 таких пунктів в Києві, майже 9 тисяч людей звернулись за добу. Працює програма пакунків тепла. Станом на цей час, на цей тиждень, майже 40 тисяч пакунків видано в тих районах, де потреба найбільше. Також я хочу подякувати всім, хто працює на інфраструктурі відновлення на Київщині, Сумщині, в Чернігівській області, у Харкові, Запоріжжі, на Дніпровщині, в інших областях Центральної України. І, зокрема, багато роботи саме зараз на Полтавщині, також на Донеччині. Дякую усім, хто працює справді ефективно на відновлення у Вінницькій області, на Франківщині, Львівщині, Волині і Кропивницькому та області, в Одесі та області. Окрема вдячність нашим енергетикам, нашим комунальникам та кожному, хто працює в Херсоні, у Миколаєві заради спільної нашої стійкості в Україні. Важливо, що всюди вдається підтримувати необхідну логістику. Російська армія і цей тиждень майже кожного дня завдає ударів по залізниці. Сьогодні був прицільний удар на Чернігівщині по потягу, який сьогодні ж мав вести людей. Днями перед тим були удари по залізниці на Харківщині, на Дніпровщині. Я хочу подякувати всім, хто захищає Україну, захищає українську залізницю та забезпечує постійну безперебійну роботу нашої Укрзалізниці. Сьогодні варто окремо відзначити роботу усіх тих рятувальників, які в будь-який час, в будь-яку погоду, за будь-яких обставин і під обстрілами працюють разом з енергетиками, разом з усіма, щоб люди могли жити. За цей тиждень проявили себе найбільші працівники ДСНС України, які задіяні в роботах саме на енергетичних об'єктах. Це Василь Ващенко, Сергій Губенко, Руслан Дубик, Максим Єпіфанов, Сергій Ковальчук, Анатолій Коломієць, Олександр Кожара, Олександр Микода, Руслан Плахтієнко, Володимир Стельчук, Іван Тимченко, Дмитро Ткаченко, Іван Хмельницький, Євген Шебетун, Михайло Чорнокалов. Дякую вам, хлопці, та усім вашим колегам, кожному і кожній, хто своєю роботою забезпечує Україні можливість вистояти цими днями, цією зимою. І, звісно, кожен з наших партнерів має усвідомлювати і свою силу, свою можливість підтримати Україну та захистити життя. Ракети для ППО потрібні кожен день, захист від російської балістики потрібен кожен день. Сьогодні знову була балістика по Київщині. Жодна країна в світі не повинна залишатись наодинці і без допомоги в умовах таких ударів і такої війни. Я хочу подякувати всім, хто з Україною. Найближчі тижні будуть активними в роботі з нашими партнерами. Як і завжди, потрібні результати. Результати мають бути. Слава Україні!
Slava.
Slava.
And that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1446 of the news from around the world. And I got to say, folks, that it's a great and wonderful thing to see that so many people have been here tonight with us as we have covered the major news in the middle of the Super Bowl. We had a peak viewership tonight of a whopping 14.5 thousand people. Now, that's a lot of people right there, especially on Super Bowl night. And not only that, we had almost 100,000 people watch this stream so far. And I got to say, we are always entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all consider this channel to be your primary source of news, all the way to the point that y'all would watch it on Super Bowl night. We're highly honored, and we thank y'all for y'all's time, y'all's patience, and y'all's enjoyment. And of course, for raising a humongous amount through our fundraiser. Matthew, what is the fundraiser at right now? And do we have any other top donors to shout out in between the last segment and this one?
So we have a little bit to go right here. Well, also, by the way, we are currently sitting at $2,926 raised, which is just about $426 above the goal. So we've done fantastic tonight. And a huge shout out to everybody once again for making that possible for, I don't even know what fundraiser we're on anymore. It's so many. It's been years and years and years of fundraisers. Over 1.6 billion combined raised for charity. It's a hell of a lot. And it's all thanks to the LSA. But also in the meantime, though, a big shout out to Patrick Chapdelaine, who put in a $50 donation to the fundraiser. And we do appreciate generosity very, very much from Patrick and also all of our other top donors as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say a huge shout out to everyone we were able to call off and all the folks we weren't able to call off, because every single one of y'all came together to make this fundraiser what it is, which is an absolutely incredible and top-notch fundraiser. So a humongous thanks to all of y'all so much once again. And with that, we're about to be moving on and into the question segment where we get to talk to y'all for the rest of the night. I see a lot of people talking about the Super Bowl right now, and me and Matthew, we've held back a little bit because we didn't want to spoil the fun, but I've seen a lot of people saying something that I generally agree with, and I have to feel like I have to break the silence. I just have to be honest with y'all for a second. I don't really like football. Like, kind of why it was easy for us to run a show tonight. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I'm just not a big fan of it. I've just never really been a big fan of sports. And to be entirely frank with y'all, the way I kind of look at sports is that it's nothing more than a distraction from real matters and issues, because football of today is a lot like the Roman circuses of antiquity, to where people would crowd into coliseums in every city, every major city across the whole of Rome to go and watch some pointless entertainment. And while it might be an interesting bit of escapism and kind of a bit of a distraction, I just got to be entirely honest with you. I don't really understand the appeal of really most modern sports, particularly American football, because it's just something about it. It just doesn't really seem that interesting to me, to be completely frank with you all. And also it's the upset. Like, also another thing that really leads me to not like it is that Alabama was so obsessed with it, you basically had to hate it. Otherwise, your only other alternative was to have your entire life consumed by a sport of throwing a ball around a field and running around until someone hits you hard enough to give you a concussion or really mess you up. And that got really tiresome when everything in Alabama is equated to football. They're like, come on, we need to feed starving children. How the hell are they ever going to become linebackers? It's like, so we're not going to do this for like the moral premise of it. You're doing it to make good linebackers. It's like, what type of stupid idea is this? It's like, and then you get to the point of like, damn, football is stupid, especially when you grow up in an Alabama public school and everything was about football. Everything else was deprioritized. There's basically no equipment for any other school organization or group except for the football team. Like, it was always just football, to the point that it was just idiotic. So I came to hate it. But anyways, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, but also I look at it as the bread and circuses of the modern age, and I'm not really one for that. I feel like we've got better things to focus on these days, really at all.
Yeah, also, by the way, I see people saying, what the hell is bread and circuses means? What that refers to is back during the Roman times, because back in the days of Rome, a Roman political strategy was generally providing free food to the populace and also very extravagant entertainment. The design was, it was supposed to keep the population, the populace of people, it was supposed to keep them distracted away from the actual issues that Rome was facing and keep them basically passive to a large degree. So that way they weren't going to cause a problem against the government. That's what it was. So when people say bread and circuses, they're referring back to the Roman times when they tried to basically do smoke and mirrors to keep people confused and distracted.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I see someone saying that's every sport event. Yeah, it is. That's why I'm just not into any sporting events. Like I find them all to be a waste. Like it's fine. Like it's one thing to play them. Like if you're involved in playing it as like a pastime when you're not like working or something, I say that's really where I like understand sports. But then you're actually playing it, and then it's fun and it's engaging. But sitting down and watching other people play sports, like I don't really get the appeal of that. It's kind of like sitting down and watching gaming YouTube channels. And I have nothing against any gaming YouTubers, but I don't really get the point of watching someone else play a game that I could play myself. You know, it's like I don't really understand it. Even if I'm not good at that game, I'd rather play it than watch someone else do it, you know? But beyond that though, the thing is, to explain to you all the bread and circus idea, the bread and circuses concept comes from ancient Rome. As you're going to see here, here's a little synopsis of it on Wikipedia. But basically, back during that period of time, the Roman Empire, because it was no longer a republic, it had been an empire for a good point at this time, was wanting to try and find a way to make the public a lot more placated and not that concerned or interested in the goings on of the government, so that way they didn't always have to deal with some heavy public backlash. So what they did is that they brought forward generally government welfare programs, if you want to call them that. They basically guaranteed that no matter what, even if you really didn't have a job, you could get bread. And there was a significant amount of laws that came out from this of how bread could be made, and every single baker had to stamp their bread loaves with a special stamp that only their bakery had, so that way if the bread loaf was defective or adulterated or anything like that, they know who did it. And then there was severe punishments and penalties for doing that for the bakers who did that. But outside of that, then the other thing that they would do is basically allow for either exceptionally cheap or free entry or viewership of public sports. And that could be anything. Everyone knows of the Roman Colosseum in Rome, and for some reason, a lot of people in the modern day think that this was the only Colosseum, but this was the greatest Colosseum, not the only one. There were loads of Colosseums throughout the entirety of the Roman Empire. Basically, every city in the entirety of Rome and the Roman Empire had some form of a Colosseum, where public sports would be held, gladiator fights, and a myriad of other things to keep the public entertained, and generally distracted from what was really going on. And so you would see, like, funnily enough, folks, back then, they would root for gladiators and have merchandise and souvenirs of gladiators like people have these days of sports jerseys for football teams and football groups and such things as that. And they would become celebrities, and they would be told by their managers or generally by the Roman emperors themselves what to say and what to support and what to do. It was basically the same sort of thing we have these days. And it was all done back then as a idea to generally get people to stop focusing on the things that matter the most, which is how things are actually going and how well the government is actually managing stuff. And I just feel like a lot of that stuff these days kind of revolves around a similar framework. Because, I mean, if you look at it, why in the hell, like, this is crazy to me, folks. How in the world does who in the world is playing in the halftime have more to do with anything and get more coverage and people talking right now than what went on with the whole Epstein files thing? Like, how in the world does that become more important than the files? Like, that's my question. Because to the American public, Bad Bunny being in the halftime show was more important to either be for it or against it than even talking about the files right now. And that really shows you how overly prevalent anything related to sports are these days in the modern United States. But we actually have a poll on this topic right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this sort of a concept, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so the question is American football the modern equivalent of bread and circuses that they had during the Roman times? 71% said yes, and 29% said no. And I would say it depends on who we're talking about, because if it's just a distraction from everyday, monotony of, going to your job and things like that, then it's, whatever. I mean, everybody likes to have a pastime to that way to sort of distract themselves, because, I mean, at the end of the day, while you can stay focused on political issues, there's only so much you can do as one person. person, you don't want to burn yourself out, even if you are dedicated to, political changes and things like that. So, I mean, technically, you could apply this logic to anything. Like any pastime could be considered a bread and circus if you really think like that. So I'm going to say, in most cases, it's really not. But for the people that are highly obsessed with it to the point where it becomes their entire personality, I would say it could very well be the bread and circuses for some of those folks. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say it really is bread and circuses, at least in my opinion, because also look at how heavily the government gets involved in this stuff, like with the football games, like, the president usually shows up. It's a whole deal. It basically is our modern day version of Gladiator Arena, and as far as how much attention it gets and how endorsed it is by the government, because I don't think the president showed up to the Super Bowl this year, but it has always been tradition for decades now that the president shows up to the Super Bowl like the Emperor of Rome and sits there in their own little booth and watches the Super Bowl along with everyone else, basically codifying it as a unofficial national event. And and apparently they were watching it at the White House or Mar-a-Lago or wherever today. Largely once again showing everyone, oh look, we're watching it as well. We're generally sanctioning this as the sports event. But it's really. It's something else to me. I just find sports, like, if you're not playing them, watching other people do it, I don't know. It's just not something for me. But also, to each their own. If you enjoy watching them, that's what you can do. It's a free country. It's just that I don't really like them all too much. I also saw someone talk about the halftime show thing, and someone was like, well, it was clearly leaning politically this way. Here's the thing, though. The guy, like I'm just gonna say this really quickly because I didn't know this about this Bad Bunny guy, but Bad Bunny is number one on the charts in America right now as the most popular musician in America. And so the Super Bowl or the NFL as a business and as a company is going to try and get the most marketable person to go to the halftime show. So they're not going to pick Kid Rock, who I don't even think is on the top 100 right now, or anyone else for that matter. They're going to pick the most marketable person who's going to guarantee get the highest ratings in the halftime for the Super Bowl. So they're going to pick the person who's number one on the charts right now. So I don't really know why in the world a lot of people were acting like that was a political thing that the NFL was doing, because, I mean, you can literally go and look at the music charts. The guy's number one in the country right now, and if he's that popular, they're obviously going to have him at the Super Bowl, because why the hell would they put on, some other guy, and then have him play, and he might not even be on the top 100 on the charts? That wouldn't really make a lot of sense. So, I'm not even getting in the political thing, but as from a business perspective, they're clearly going to try and get as many people watching, because that's how they get a return on the ad slots they're selling for the Super Bowl, is by the ratings they get. So they're going to do whatever they can to hedge the ratings to be as high as they possibly can be, so that way next year when the Super Bowl comes around, they can sell all of their ad slots for an even larger amount than they did this year. So I don't really understand. Also, on top of that, someone's saying, one person is this way and the other person is that way. Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Like, if we're talking about Bad Bunny versus Kid Rock, not from a political perspective, but from a business perspective, Kid Rock isn't even on the charts right now. So who in the world is going to come in and go, oh yeah, I've listened to Kid Rock's music this year, I can't wait for him to be in the halftime show? I mean, from a business perspective, that's going to be a flop. He's not even on the charts. Everyone's going to basically log off because they don't even really know who the hell the guy is, and he was popular like 30 years ago. This guy is popular right now. He's number one on the charts, so it doesn't really matter.
Didn't Snoop Dogg perform in the last year's one?
Yeah, but it was Kendrick Lamar who was like the main event, and I think he was at the top of the charts when that was coming around last year, or really high up. I think he was in the top 10. So generally, they're always trying to pick someone who's going to be at the top of the charts, because then at that point, you're hedging that everyone's going to be watching and raising the ratings and the viewership to be able to watch the halftime show of one of the most popular artists in America at that time. Because let's go and look who in the world have been the performers. Let's see, performers halftime show. Let's see, Super Bowl every year. Let's see who in the world we can get on this list here. So let's see here. We want to go all the way down to the present day. So, as you can see here, they were trying to get people who were at top in the charts. So, generally, Bad Bunny this year. Last year, it was basically Kendrick or Lamar. Snoop Dogg was in there, but I think Serena Williams was also in that halftime show as well. Then the year before that, it was...
Sings?
Huh?
She sings.
No, she didn't sing. I think she did like some crip dance, and then that became really like controversial or something like that. And they're like, why the hell did she do like a dance for a gang or something? But anyways, beyond that, then it
Crip
was
dancing at the Super Bowl.
yeah, like I think like you can Google it. Like I think there's a clip of it out there, and it was like they focused the camera on her for a second, and everyone was like, "Why the hell did she do that?" Like, and and then like that became a huge thing. I remember like it was in the meme circles or something like that for a couple of days after that. I was like, "What the hell?" I was like, I didn't even know that
Oh,
that was that dance, but you can pull it up. It's there. And then Usher was generally the main event for 2024. And then before that, it was let's see here. Let's see. Who in the world is this? Um, Oh, it was Jay-Z, basically. Um, but it's mostly big names. Like I think that's what a lot of people are missing here. Like if you're not on the top 100s, you're not going to be at the halftime show. And I don't know where the hell Kid Rock's at, but he's not in the top 100. So it's like like taking someone who's not going to be viable as a business option for ratings sake. That's not going to work because this is show business after all, and the NFL's real moneymaker is the TV licenses that they're paying out. I mean, the ticket attendances make a good amount of money, but it's really the TV licenses and the ad spots that make the most money. So at that point, the whole entire business strategy here is to get the highest ratings possible to sell the ad slots for the highest amount you can. The next year it comes around because you can go, okay, this was our ratings for 2026. So based off of this is what the ad slots are going to cost for per minute of time in 2027. So go ahead and start buying your slots right now. So I think that's what a lot
I
of
just I will agree with people though that say like for example they don't want their kids watching some of this stuff during the halftime shows and stuff. I mean I understand that if I had children I wouldn't want them watching anything having to do with street gangs or anything like that as children. I wouldn't want them exposed to like this hip hop stuff because a lot of the lyrics are pretty bad if you really think about it. And if you're not mature enough to understand that it's mainly I mean, some people call that art. I mean, it's up to subjectivity of whether or not you call that art or not. But I wouldn't want my kids hearing that personally.
yeah, like I wouldn't say that kids should be listening to that, but then again, I mean, if you're looking through the whole of the 2010s here, you had the Black Eyed Peas, like playing "Sweet Child of Mine" and stuff like that. You had Nicki Minaj. I mean, that's not really like a child-friendly sort of a singer back in 2012. Nobody was really batting an eye on that one. And it's been like that for basically the entirety of 15 years at this point from 2010 onwards. And I bet if we look into the 2000s, it was like that as well back then. Let's see. So this would have been the Miami Horns. I don't even know who they are. Um, and then, so actually they had marching bands up through the 2000s, actually. Well, actually they had Sting in 2003. And then they had Britney Spears in 2001. I mean, if you talk about Britney Spears as a person, she's certainly not family friendly. I mean, like just as like the person who she is.
I just I just thought of it. Honestly, like I'm kind of glad I don't have kids because I was just thinking about it. I've never really put much thought to it because I don't have kids. I had never had to really think about it. But it would be really really hard to like actually like if you were trying to shelter children away from like bad influences and stuff. It would be really hard today because I mean all this stuff is all over social media, all over the place. So you can't really escape it. It's on the TV. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. So it's like how do you prevent your kids from getting on there? Because if they go to school, there's going to be other kids with phones and access to social media. So they're going to see it through other kids, even if you restrict them from having phones and computers and things like that. And also these days, even teachers are talking about it in front of the kids. They don't have any common sense not to, expose children to this, depending on where you are. Our teachers definitely didn't. We went to public school in the backwoods of Alabama. They didn't really have any filters at all about what they were saying in front of kids. It would be really tough, to be honest. I would have to, if I had kids, I'd probably go back and grab like the old Disney stuff I was watching as a child or something from like
Oh,
way back in the 1990s or 80s or 70s or something. If I was going to show my kids something.
oh, hold up, folks. Sorry, I actually correction here. It wasn't actually the marching bands that those were special guests. The main performers, even in 2000. Let me make sure to get the good one here. P Diddy in 2004.
Hmm.
Now, does that seem family friendly? I mean, like people are acting like this whole thing's new. Isn't this guy in prison right now? I mean, is that guy really a family friendly kind of person? From what I know of his music also isn't really that family friendly either. Certainly wasn't back in 2004. Still isn't today. I didn't hear a lot of people going, "I'm boycotting the Super Bowl because P Diddy is going to be singing his shit." Like I didn't hear that back then. But it's kind of crazy like that. Like people are acting like these days everything's got to be a political deal. I mean, P Diddy was one of the main halftime show events in 2004, and nobody batted an eye back then. I mean, hell, look, there was Kid Rock actually in 2004. That was back when he actually was on the charts. So it's not like it's a political thing. It's just whoever is popular enough, they get on the list to be in the halftime show. If you're not popular during that year, you're not going to be there. I mean, if you want Paul McCartney right now, he's not, topping the charts. So you're going to be pretty hard pressed to have a lot of people watch that for a halftime show. And I'm not even saying.
What about something like Coldplay or something like that? I mean, that's an extremely popular band. I mean, why can't we bring out like something like that instead? Like, why can't we have that?
Oh,
I would actually tune in for that.
They had Coldplay back in
When?
2016, back when they were actually popular still.
Whoa, excuse me?
Well, I mean, they're not really high on the charts anymore. I mean, I think they're off the top 100 right now.
I mean, they're extremely popular. They have a ton of monthly listeners all the time. Is they still popular? What the hell are you talking about?
Let's see, top 100 music charts for this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like hitting like the monthly top charts or something, but they're still popular.
So let's see here. Let me see if I can find. Let's see. So, I mean, right now, if you were going off of, let's see here, we want to find the Billboard Hot 100 for the artists, if there is that. Let's see. Let me see if I can find that top music artists. So, we're looking through this right now. So here would be your most marketable options for right now this year, because when it comes to the Super Bowl, there's nothing in it about politics. It's all about business and driving up ratings. So if they had gotten Morgan Wallen, who is currently #1 for the Billboard Top 100 artists in America, that would have been a very solid business decision. If they had gotten Taylor Swift or Megadeth, that also would have been solid. Even Bruno Mars would have been a pretty solid option. Bad Bunny looks to be number 13, but he's still up around the top 25, so any of these artists would be solid options for ratings. So if we go down this list, you can find some others that are further down, like Billie Eilish, who could have been there, although that might not be marketable to a wider audience. You could have had Rihanna, The Weeknd, Justin Bieber even could have been out there, and that might have been financially viable or ratings viable. But let's see here. You could have Post Malone. He's not up in the top 25.
Wait a minute, there's that dude everybody was talking about on the
Young
stream
boy
last
never
night.
broke
Never
again.
broke again. Right, that's the guy. That's apparently him. So apparently, let's see here. So I don't know. I've never heard the guy ever before. I've never even seen the guy before, but I guess that's the guy.
And let's see here. I'm trying to see if I can find Kid Rock on this chart. And let's see here. He is not on the chart. That's kind of the issue here. Like, people are saying, like, and it's entirely because it's political and people aren't thinking with their heads here. The NFL is a business to make money. So Bad Bunny is a way better pick than Kid Rock, because Bad Bunny is number 13 right now on the top 100 artists. Kid Rock isn't even in the top 100 at all. So who the hell's going to watch for Kid Rock? Nobody, unless if you're just doing it for the political purpose of it, which doesn't really guarantee any viewership, because if y'all watched recently, the Melania documentary didn't really do that well at the box office for the budget that it had. So apparently politics doesn't really count entirely for viewership. It's more so who in the world is actually popular, and that means you're going to pick a popular artist.
Yeah. But I think the part that you're not considering is it looks like the Super Bowl has a massive diverse audience, but it looks like it generally has 60% plus of adults 65 plus tuning in. So I mean, if you're 65 years old and up, you probably don't know who these people are in this chart. I mean, probably not. I mean, I don't. I'm 25. I know maybe like 2 or 3 people off this thing, and that's about it. I've never even really heard of these people for the most part. I'm not sure how they're so popular. I mean, I'm just out of tune with things probably these days. I don't really listen to too much modern music like that. But I mean, it seems like a lot of older folks are watching. So why wouldn't they bring in something that appeals to that market if that's the demographic?
Well, I mean, they might be trying to attract a younger crowd because, like the older market isn't going to be around forever. If anything, it's going to be the shortest lived one of them all. So they might be trying to attract younger crowds into watching, like they've done always. Because if you look at, like, for example, in 2004, I mean, who in the hell was 65 years old listening to P. Diddy?
I never listened to P Diddy.
Oh, I mean, who, like, but for that matter, if you're 65 in 2004, were you listening to P. Diddy? Not really. So it's usually always an appeal to get younger people to watch. But also on top of that, I mean, if they want to appeal to that older demographic, they could have gotten Morgan Wallen because he's a country singer. But the problem with that right now is that, from what I understand, I think Morgan Wallen, because I watched a body cam of this, I think he threw like a chair off of a top floor of a bar in Nashville, and there was a little bit of legal trouble that ensued with that. So he may have not been considered to be a viable option because of the optics of that. I think that might have been a recent thing, or he may have turned it down because I believe that you actually have to pay to be able to get into the NFL halftime show nowadays instead of the other way around where they pay you to be able to promote your music. So, there's a lot of factors involved there, but I think a lot of people are overlooking this because people act like everything's political these days. It's a business decision to have someone who's generally in the top 100 heading your halftime show. If you didn't do like that would for example here, folks, because we are also a business as well, and I'm really speaking about this from more so a clinical business perspective than anything, because we do this on a far smaller degree. What would make more sense, for us to cover the major news that's coming out of Russia or Iran, or completely stop the presses to run a show on the Sudanese civil war, which in reality, from what we can tell off of polling and viewership interaction and everything, nobody gives a shit about the Sudan civil war. That's basically the sort of crux that you would have with Bad Bunny versus Kid Rock. Nobody gives a damn about Kid Rock, much like the Sudanese Civil War, unless it's for political reasons. Bad Bunny's number 13 on the charts because apparently he has popular music. I'm not here to judge the quality of his music, and I'm not here to say whether I like it or not. I've never even listened to this guy's music, but it's got to be popular enough for it to be number 13 right now. That speaks for itself.
What would be cool during the halftime show, for example, with the upcoming Artemis mission that's coming up, going back to the moon, is if they had like a whole thing that they choreographed where it was like a rocket taking off and stuff, and they had like a patriotic video playing, like showing going back to the moon, and all the hype they had around the moon landings back in the first time we went. Oh, there's a whole bunch of hype around it. They ought to do something like that during the halftime show, and like have the people special forces rappelling in from the helicopters and doing stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool. I think they do that sometimes, actually.
Yeah, I think they do actually. But I'm sure hopefully that'll be televised and be a big deal because they basically turned that into nothing. Like nobody's even talking about it right now, and it's like, why not? It's like this is a big thing, and it's basically like NASA's getting no support from anyone right now on pushing that about that's going to be happening soon. You would think that we would be talking about that, considering that's the 250th anniversary of the United States, and on the very 250th anniversary of the United States, we're going to be sending astronauts back to the moon. You would think that'd be a big thing.
Yeah, you'd think so. Someone said only fans. What does that mean?
We're going to move on from that. We're not going to touch that. We're going to just move on from that one. So with that, we are on to a couple of more questions, as a matter of fact. We actually have some time for some questions here. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so calling off one more top donor that came in from Nightmare Before Christmas. They put in a 50, and a huge shout to you, Nightmare Before Christmas, for also helping us to get over $3,000 raised, and that is fantastic to see right there, but we do appreciate that. And also, we do have some super chats, believe it or not. We're going to jump into our first one, which goes to Craig Jones, and who puts in a 20. Thank you very much, Craig, for that support. He said, take one from the chat, U.S. Air Force.
And thank you so much for the support from the U.S. Air Force. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Marie Jacobs, who said, if time allows for reminiscing attempts, name something other than family friends that you both missed from Alabama, LLT, LSA. The only thing that I missed from Alabama is the barbecue. That's the one thing. Obviously, I still I will admit there are some friends I do miss from time to time, and that we have in Alabama. Even though we generally bash the overall general attitude of people, there were still good people in Alabama, so that we know there that still live there. But for the most part, I would say mainly the barbecue. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say the barbecue and also the rail fanning, because they had this little platform out here near to the Irondale Yard that Matthew and me would just go and stand out at whenever we had some free time, and you just watch trains roll by, and outside of that, it was literally dead silent around here. You just hear the birds and the wind. It was really nice. And they don't have anything like that in Salt Lake, sadly. So, we haven't really gotten around to doing a lot of rail fanning out here. There's nothing to easily
I
get around.
found you one. I
Oh?
found you one. Yep, I found one. I drove out today to the Pony Express Trail. Show them that out there, by the way. It's out there past Eagle Mountain.
This one?
Let's see. Yeah, it's that one. It's going out to Faust. It's by the Tooele Army Depot South Station. It goes through the middle here. Yeah, go back up a little bit. There's actually a railroad that goes through here somewhere.
Oh, that's not a main line though. This is gonna be really quiet. Like I think this goes to the Army Depot. Yeah, I think it does. Or something like that. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. They ripped up the tracks. What the hell? It's an Army Depot without rail access? That's whack. That's like unheard of. But where in the world does this go? Because I think this is a north to south line, and just generally, unless we're like in the East Coast, these are probably gonna be pretty vacant because it looks like it might be like a coal thing, maybe. Let me see here. Because you never want to be sitting near tracks that have nothing on them. Oh, what is this? It's an oil thing up here in Tooele, near to this army-looking storage facility sort of place, which I think is defunct now.
This thing doesn't happen to go through Dugway, does it?
I wouldn't know, actually. It might. I'm trying to see where this goes, because I'm sure this connects back up to the actual main line that I think UP runs just south of Salt Lake, like the actual Great Salt Lake. Yep, there it is. It connects to everything else up here at the Great Salt Lake. So some rail fanning that could be cool would be to hop off on a road around here somewhere and watch the trains go through the salt flats, because this is a pretty busy little stretch through here because it's an east to west connection, so a lot of intermodal traffic comes through there. So maybe I'm trying to let's see, are there any roads out here rather than the interstate? Maybe this one.
No, it's just the interstate.
Damn, that's
There's an exit going through Death Valley that leads straight to Dugway off the interstate, but you got to go a little further west for that.
Let's see if Dugway does have a rail connection. It looks like that's not an old rail bed. That's like a trail or something. It doesn't look like they have any rail connections to Dugway, so I guess it's just a truck and car only sort of a location. But
Probably so. I'll tell you this though, that Pony Express Trail, like I went all the way down it. Like I went all the way down, almost like getting to Faust. If you go look at it, if you put it down on a street view on that thing, it was like dead silent out there. Like when I mean silence, I've never been in a place that's like legit silent. Like go up from, not down there. That's too far down. That's way too far down here. Go back up a little bit, up above Faust. Like you see that Pony Express Road right there.
this one?
Look at Faust and go east.
This one?
Yeah, put it right about there.
Oh, this one.
This is where I went. I went all the way down here from Eagle Mountain all the way down Pony Express Road, and I pulled over just to take a second. So I turned the car off and I stood outside for a second. I was like, it is actually dead silent. Like, I mean, zero sound at all. Like, no sound, no birds, no animals, no wind, nothing. Like, no cars or anything. And it was honestly fantastic. I was like, I've never actually stood somewhere where it's actually dead silent like that. Now, and then after a while, is this actually a shooting enclosure out here? You can actually go shooting and set up targets and stuff like that, pretty much wherever you want, as long as you're outside of the shooting enclosure that's closer to the main road. It's amazing. Occasionally, you can hear like a little faint gunshot out in the distance, but other than that, it was dead silent.
Huh. They also have a rocket club launch site right here that appears to be covered in craters. Like, I'm just kidding, by the way. That's just the normal topography. But look, it's a little rocket club.
Man, if you honestly, like, it's a fantastic place out there. Like, it's just wide open. It's like Minecraft creative mode out here in this place. And you got people running around. Like, if you go further toward the main road, you have people running around on 4-wheelers, dirt bikes. There's even people like racing their actual pickup trucks, like down through the dirt. Like, you see huge dust plumes flying up out in the distance, like as far as you can see.
Man, that's crazy. You know, little did Matthew know, folks, that this is actually a famous spot where mobsters would bury people that they took out in Las Vegas. He just didn't know that. But it is cool, though.
Man, Las Vegas is nowhere around here, man.
Man, they take him far. Man, they take him. I'm just kidding. They usually drop them off in the Hoover Dam area around Lake Mead and stuff. That's usually where they go. because back in the day that was near nothing. Nowadays it's really close to Salt Lake, well, not Salt Lake, but Las Vegas itself because of urban sprawl. But beyond that, though, a really cool sort of a thing, actually. You know, if I was to try and do some rail fanning, probably the smart place to do it would be around here, which we did drive up into that one time, Matthew, and we're like, oh, that's kind of a little tough. This is actually a good rail fanning spot from what people say online, or going all the way up here to Ogden, up here, you could try and pull over on one of the roads somewhere in here, if there is a road other
Man.
than the interstate.
Someone said right here. They said, "I heard a rumor you're gonna make a drifting montage at the Salt Flats." I tell you, I've been on the Salt Flats. I've been on the Salt Flats. I did a small pull because it was an empty day. It was nobody out there, and it was fantastic. I was like, man, if I could like just go full speed on this thing, that would be something else. But that I don't know. I don't really know what the like rules are about the Salt Flats like that. Like I don't know if like I think drifting might mess up the surface of it or something like that. So I'm not sure if they'd even allow something like that. But that would be really cool.
This is a cool rail fanning spot, like with the mountains in the background and like the bend that the train would come around. That's a pretty cool little spot. That'd be a neat one to take pictures at. But this is pretty far away, folks. This is all the way up near Ogden, which is a little bit ways away from Salt Lake City itself. So I'll have to see. I'll have to see, folks. One thing I did see though that was really cool recently, and actually, Matthew, you were in the car with me when this happened, but we were coming back from a place, and on this main line here that comes through the middle of Salt Lake, there was that freight train that came through, and it had, this was really cool, folks. Let me go pull up a X Southern Pacific and show this to y'all, because at the lead end of this engine, it had one of these X Southern Pacific trains with the UP markings on it, and it was leading a BNSF unit. It was like a mixed consist through the city towards the capital itself, like the actual downtown Salt Lake area, which was really cool. And I was like, wow, that's neat. I've never seen anything like that before. So that was really neat.
Well, let me ask you this: if I said I would give you $100 to drive out to where I was on that Pony Express Road at midnight, would you do it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd be fine with it.
Oh, you would actually go out there at midnight?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Interesting.
I mean, I bring a gun.
I don't think you
Like,
would do it again. I don't think you'd ever do it again if you did it once. I don't think you would.
No, I think I'd be fine. I just, make sure to be packing quite nicely and just go on out there with a faith in the Lord, you see. No, I'd be fine. I'd be fine, I'd be totally fine.
I've heard of very strange experiences going out there at midnight. It's during the day, it's interesting. Like during the middle of the day, like when it's bright, it's interesting. But you go out there at night where it's dead silent, also absolutely pitch black, like you can't see anything. There's no lighting anywhere. People claim that they have strange experiences out there at midnight, especially when it's really dark.
Oh, people say that about everywhere. They said that about Birmingham, man. And we were out getting Taco Bell like 2 a.m. We were fine, man.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm usually game for a lot of stuff, but that's one thing there I probably actually would not do.
One thing I would do though is I would climb that trail that we did at the Bell Canyon at night and fall off and break my neck. That's one thing I would try and do, because that would actually be pretty cool to see the city lights from like a high altitude at night. That would be really neat.
Yeah, it would be pretty neat. I'll just be a little scared of the bears or something coming out at night.
There's bears in this area. Also, folks, I found this out because I pulled this up. Apparently, this trail, because I thought, like, I'll be honest with y'all, folks, my thighs are burning like hell today. They're extremely sore from what we did yesterday. Matthew's generally fine, but I'm not as fit as he is. Like, obviously, many of y'all have seen me in the face reveals and stuff before, but I was looking into this trail. I was like, how tough is that trail? Because I was like, I want to know. I was like, how bad off am I? And it turns out that trail, according to everything online, is considered to be a moderate to challenging trail. It's kind of like on the fine line between moderate and challenging. And I was like, I did not know that, because I actually, to me, it looked like it would be an easier one, because I usually would think of like a difficult trail like being almost like straight vertical. Like that's what I would think is difficult. Apparently this one's extremely difficult. And Matthew, you wouldn't believe what kind of a grade it has over most of the trail. I think it's something like a 7% grade, which is incredibly steep for most things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the U.S. Forestry Service, whenever they make new trails inside of the national forests and stuff like that, they have a standard now that the trail has to be designed where the steepest grade is, I think, something like 1.5 or 2%. And it's not that steep because they are trying to go for something that's a lot more accessible and enjoyable that helps you to cover a lot more ground easily. But older trails like the Bell Canyon Trail, which were originally created in like the 1890s, they were created by amateurs that just carved their own paths. So usually they would take the most direct path to anything, which is usually the steepest and most difficult. So apparently that is a fairly on up their trail in difficulty, which I would have never believed doing it because I was like, this is like it was strenuous, but it was also pretty fun. It was like super fun actually. And then when I got back, I was like, huh, so apparently that's what they call a moderate to challenging trail. I was like, I would have never guessed that. So that was interesting to note and kind of cool to know about the place.
Yeah, I personally, I'm not too affected by it. Like I was good today. I'm slightly sore in my shoulders a little bit, but that's mainly because when occasionally, like I didn't actually end up falling down like Andrew did, but I kind of like slipped a little bit and would have to regain my balance. And when I did that, I feel like I twisted something at the top of my like shoulder or something. So I'm a little sore up there, but my legs are just fine, like completely. Like I stay exercising constantly. I'm always bike riding, running, walking, something. So I've been doing that for months ever since we got out here. So I was sort of ready for it. Like I was wanting to go higher on that thing. But if we'd gone any higher though, I think I actually would have probably gotten injured because we didn't have any traction at all. Like we lost all traction.
Man, dude, that one time I went, oop. I was like, damn, bro. I was like, dude, honestly, man, that's the crazy thing. That never hurt me once. Like, I'm not sore from falling the 3 times I did it at all today. It's just my thighs that are extremely sore. Because I was also telling Matthew, I was like, Matthew, we never thought about this yesterday when we were doing this, but going up that trail, in some places it was steep enough that you're basically doing squats and lunges the whole way up and down. And I never thought about that, and it's over a very long period. And especially wherever it's icy, you're basically squatting and squat walking the whole way, or you're slipping and busting your ass like I did, which is the other way to do it. But I was like, man, dude, we like did like 1.4 miles of lunges basically going up it and down it. I was like, that's actually kind of like crazy because in Alabama everything's flat, so if you walk anywhere, it's literally just walking in a straight line on flat ground for the most part. But something that's really cool, folks. Another trail that's going to be kind of neat to check out is this Jacob's Ladder Trail, which is apparently a really interesting one. And I also read that this is the one that actually leads to the summit. But Matthew, I think that we might not want to ever reach the summit of Lone Peak because I was also reading online that you have to be like a class 4 scrambler or something like that. Which is one of the higher qualifications for mountain climbing to make it to the actual Lone Peak, because you have to walk down what's basically a 1 foot or 2 foot wide spine with about a 300-foot drop off on both sides for about a half mile to make it to the summit. And if you slip at all, you're going to fall to your death.
Oh well, I mean that's not really that bad.
Like a 1 to 2 foot wide walkway with winds with a 300-foot vertical drop, like a straight drop on both sides. Let me show you all this. That's the straight drop I'm talking about right there. That you have to get on top of that thing and you have to wander up it to get up there. And that's a straight drop off. I mean, that's not like a slope. There's nothing to even grab onto. It's just straight up. I think it's like limestone or granite or something like that. So you just fall straight to your death if you slip.
Oh, that's interesting.
Man, he's like, huh, that's interesting.
I would still do it personally. I would still do it.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, like looking at that, that's
If you can do that, I might go out at midnight to the Pony Express trail out there near Dugway at midnight possibly.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. Like getting up there to the top of that thing, that seems to me like it would be an Everest style sort of a death wish, like that little Hillary step that everyone has to wander up. That's literally like a foot or two wide, like this is, and people fall off all the time and die. It's like I don't know about that. Like it would probably be cool to go down below it, like right down here. This is just 500 feet from the top. And it looks like that down here. I mean, it's a really cool picture spot and stuff. But you don't have to go all the way up there, which is 604 more feet up, and also a straight cliff edge.
Yeah, possibly so. I kind of want to go up that though.
Man, we're gonna have an RIP T-shirt for you. Like, man, when you try it, man, that's gonna be tough, man. I don't know about that, and it's like that from both
Also,
sides too, by the way.
Also, by the way, like getting off the mountain here for a second, figuratively and literally. Speaking back that about that Pony Express trail, by the way, you know you can see wild horses out there if you go down, like down toward Vernon. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Remember we pulled that up before. Like we went out there before trying to look for like the wild horses and stuff. We never saw any. Did you see them?
Yeah. No, I didn't see him today. I didn't go out far enough though. Like you got to go farther than what I went. You got to go down toward Vernon, which is getting actually toward the entrance of Dugway. But you can actually see the horses out there, the wild ones. If you really drive around enough, you'll spot them eventually.
Oh, we got Aunt Libby's dog cemetery out here.
That's
Let's-
creepy. That's a very creepy spot right there.
So let's see here. By Miss Oris Aunt Libby Rock, which is shelter graves of her beloved dogs. Let's see. Why the companions in her lonely, childless vigils here? That sounds eerie as hell. Like that sounds.
It is eerie. There's like if anybody here is like one of the UFO people that likes to like look at that type of stuff, there has been some wild alleged sightings like out there in that area. Like it all, and honestly, I will admit, like there is a bit of strangeness to the place out there. Like it feels strange going out there, like the whole Pony Express little trail and stuff like that. It's sort of odd. So. I mean, you can see it here. I mean, it's just out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's literally you're out here in the wilderness, basically. Like there's nothing around. To me, it's a little bit creepy.
It is a little creepy, but it is also quite interesting. And I'm not one for creepy stuff. Like when I mean that, I mean like I'm just not one to get into things being creepy because we basically live and dwell in the dark these days because of our show, and also the fact that I usually stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning. So like I don't find the dark that scary anymore until something scary happens in the dark, and then I'll probably be scared of it. But that hasn't happened yet, luckily. Count my lucky stars. Also, by the way, Mandy, I also read this online about the Lone Peak. The Lone Peak is the 4th most difficult mountain to climb to the peak of in the entirety of the Wasatch Range. Like even more difficult than the tallest one by a good bit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was reading about it online, and because after we did that little meandering that we did the other day, I was like, what would it actually take to get up there? It turns out a lot, and it turns out you got to be pretty experienced actually to really attempt it and not die. Else you're going to end up on the local news because apparently it's quite dangerous and very difficult once you actually get up there to the technical part on the spine heading to the actual summit.
Interesting. That is fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating indeed. Maybe we want to pick another one, like maybe the one behind it. Pfeiffer horn, maybe. You know this one? Maybe
Here,
not.
Feefer, have some water, Feefer.
Oh, no, Feefer.
Live view from Guantanamo Bay.
Oh no, Fever! Oh no! Oh look, the Twin Peaks! Bro, we could climb these.
Twin Peaks, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Jesus is King, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you for that support, by the way. They said, I heard your discussion the other night on the economic system being unrecognizable in 10 years. And they said, and also they quoted a Bible verse here, by the way. Generally speaking, I think it will be unrecognizable in 10 years. I still stand by that, but we'll have to see what it actually turns out to be. But Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you for the support, and we will have to see. But a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to none other than Chef Danny B, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that support. He said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. And are y'all to backpack that trail? Which I mean hike, set up camp, and hike more. And I would check that, or check with that, an LLT, LSA. And I want to do that eventually, Danny. The only problem is that because of our work schedule, it's nearly impossible to actually do that and enjoy it because we'd either have to rush through it, which could be dangerous depending on how high up we're going. It's just really not feasible to do a multi-day hike like that with our work schedule. So we could do something like pretty short of that, but not the full-blown thing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say we would like to try that one day, but even on the AI overview right here, Matthew, I said, how hard is it to summit Lone Peak? Summiting Lone Peak in Utah is considered very challenging and strenuous, frequently cited as one of the hardest day hikes in the Wasatch Range. So, I mean, it is one hell of a hike. Like, when I looked into it, like reading everything that I read, and it wasn't the AI review, it was a load of articles that people had written about it. This is a really tough one. And you can even see right here from one of those articles, it does mention that class 4 scrambling, which is, a very sort of a technical sort of scrambling. Like, it's not like just your normal scrambling. This is real scrambling. This ain't your scrambled eggs, honey, from Kansas. But it is fairly tough. So I think we might want to try on something easier than this one, because this one is the most striking one. And if you're in Salt Lake City, you can see Lone Peak from literally every part of the city, and it's really beautiful looking. But I don't know if we would want to try that as our first one. We might want to settle for an easier or smaller one. Like maybe, let's see here.
What about K1?
No, K2 more so. Like, how about K2? Like,
yeah.
yeah. Let's see here. What is that? Maybe it's not the Honeycomb Cliffs. Maybe it's Mount Wolverine. I think it's this one. It's the one that you can see from like Solitude and whatnot. That one would probably be an easier one to try because you're way closer to its peak at the base where you park than you would be elsewhere. So that might be an easier one to try just for everything involved to, really get the sea legs in the sense for mountain climbing. But Twin Peak, Lone Peak, I mean, that one, I don't know. We will definitely though get up to Bell Canyon Upper Falls, which is basically where the Bell Canyon trail ends. One day we're gonna get up there, and that'll probably be soon because we're getting cleats and stuff all ready to go at this again. But I'm really excited for it. I really love the mountain climbing stuff and the feeling of it. It's so cool. It really is like what you would imagine like the outdoorsman's type of environment to be, is like this area of America and also this mountain range. It's a very beautiful one, and it's picturesque in everywhere. Like everywhere you turn, there is like a painting or a picture to be had around every single corner. It's really cool. But still,
just wait until you add a 60-pound pack to the situation, and then it makes it even harder.
Man, if you added a 60-pound pack to me right now, man, I'd be going, oh, man, like I'll be dying up there, man. I'll be saying, let me down, man. But also, we could go to Kings Peak eventually, out in the middle of this weird mountain range. This is the weirdest mountain range in America. Did you know that?
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, this one's wild because this is the only mountain range, I think, in the lower 48 that runs east to west instead of north to south like the rest of them do. And also, it's just weird. Like, it is actually, like, physically weird. Let me see if I can show it.
This
is what it looks like.
Ranch is out here, too.
Streetwalkers?
Or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about. That thing
Skinwalkers?
out here. It's like creepy. Yeah, that.
I don't know about those streetwalkers. I think that's what you find in Nashville in the late hours. But skinwalkers, that's what they say is out here. But look at this. I mean, this whole, like, it's weird. This is like a Martian landscape out here. Really bizarre looking. The Kings Peak is actually, I think, the highest mountain in all of in Utah, I believe. Yeah, it is the highest mountain in Utah. I don't know how tall that is. I think it's like 12,000 something feet. But it's pretty tall, and it's also in the middle of nowhere. You actually have to hike a long way to get to it, I think. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Bruce, for that support. He said M61 Vulcan, the logical choice. Quack, LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And the M61 Vulcan is baller. And a huge thanks to you once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Bruce Lee once again. He said, the manifest contains many certain documents that I cannot repeat on the air. He said, quack and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support. And I would have to say they are quite interesting. I would have to agree. So a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And with that, folks, it's now time to get our live chat questions. But first of all, let's get our Morse code decoders. We had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroy, Fluffness, Kush, Carpenter, Sire, and Brian. They said, Morse says, Russia's playing a dangerous game, all things considered. But then again, why not? LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all hit that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code mission tonight. I got to congratulate the entirety of the Least Winger Synod Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Truly an amazing and incredible thing, and wonderful to know that all of yous are getting that Morse code message correct. So a humongous thanks to y'all so much once again. And with that, it's time for us to get to our live chat questions. So Matthew, what do we got?
And our first live chat goes to none other than One Visual, who said, how many tanks that gets destroyed get hauled back to Russia to fix? Or do they even do that?
Very few of them. Most of them are so burned out, there's really no way to recover anything from them. So most of them end up just being scrapped for for raw materials, really. So I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dynasty Shipping, who said, do you think the United States will start nuclear tests again near Mercury, Nevada, after the Chinese nuclear tests have been exposed?
They might, but I'm not entirely sure on that one because there has already been some like signaled willingness to restart nuclear tests, and that might be used as an excuse. But that generally opens up Pandora's box for everyone in the world to start nuclear tests again, which might not be the best thing. So I hope that this addresses the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from AF Kaplan, who said, even if Russia did actually attack NATO, how would they be able to maintain a war footing against NATO countries and Ukraine?
They really wouldn't be able to, and that's where I think a lot of people are kind of missing the gun here. They don't have to. They just have to start a shooting war to where there are bullets being fired by both sides, and then they can threaten tactical nuclear force. Especially, it's even a better case scenario for the Russians at that point if they are going to get steamrolled quickly, because then that allows for them to pull out the nuclear option or threaten the nuclear option far faster than otherwise. So I would have to say, generally, they wouldn't be able to do that, but that doesn't matter because their end goal would be the threatening of tactical nuclear weapons used inside of Europe, which would be definitely possible at that point and would be possible under Russian nuclear doctrine. So I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have one from IC, who said, I've been expecting Russia to use nukes on Ukraine, and could the threats against NATO be a bluff that allows Russia to nuke Ukraine?
Not necessarily, because threats against Europe is a separate entity than Ukraine, and generally in foreign policy, you have to have a direct purpose to nuke someone rather than having a problem with someone else and then nuking a third party as an example to them. That's not really how foreign policy, especially with nuclear deterrence or nuclear weaponry, really works. So I would say it's highly unlikely. So I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from an old warrior fella who said, if you remember the pic of Prigozhin talking to the general in charge of Rostov, this guy was the third person to pick, and his loyalty is certainly questionable.
That could be likely. That could be likely. And maybe that's why they tried to get him. Who's to say? Who's to say? But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
We also have one from P Dog, who said, was there actual problems with the Armada 14 tank, or did they just state that to pull them out of Ukraine to be able to gather them for an attack on the Baltic states?
The T-14 Armada project has been canceled, and no T-14 Armadas were ever seen or used on the front lines in Ukraine. So they never were there, one. They've always been in Kazan at a training field. And also the project was canceled, one, because they had a million technical issues with it, and two, the tanks were incredibly expensive. They were $5 million a unit, which for the Russian Federation, with the military budget they work with, that is completely unaffordable per unit cost. So I hope that does address it the best I can, but they're not going to be using T-14 Armadas against the Baltics because the entire program has been canceled, so they can't even get spare parts for the vehicles anymore from an assembly line, because those assembly lines have long been ripped up at this point for about 2.5 years now. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have one from AF Kaplan, who said, even if Russia tries to use the nukes, how can we be sure that they'll even function as they intended?
That's something that we don't really know. A lot of them might not work. But the problem with that, though, is that we only need a couple of them to work to see irreparable damage caused in the United States of America. Imagine this. During the pandemic in the earlier part of the decade, U.S. hospitals were being overrun by hundreds of thousands of people who required medical attention. Now, imagine if a city is hit by a nuclear weapon, you've got millions of people in that one municipality that are wounded or killed. So, one, the killed people are no longer a part of the workforce to even tend or help out. Two, there's at least, say in like New York City, there would be like 2 or 3 million people wounded in a nuclear explosion with significant injuries that will require medical attention. That would completely overwhelm every single hospital on the entirety of the eastern seaboard at one moment. So even if only 3 warheads made it through into the United States and made landfall and hit major cities, the damage would be unbelievable. Like you would never have the medical infrastructure to take care of all of the injured from just one nuclear explosion in one city, much less even 3 warheads hitting the United States. And not only that, all of the damage that might cause the financial sectors, the economy, Also, on top of that, the morale of the country, the political stability of the United States, among many other things, all of that would generally be jeopardized even by a singular nuclear explosion. So, while the argument does stand that the Russians probably don't have a lot of operational nuclear weapons, and most of them only exist really on paper, the problem is that it doesn't really require they don't really require thousands of nuclear weapons really, and we don't even require thousands of nuclear weapons to basically completely destroy or lay waste to the Russians, if we're speaking about the United States, or for the Russians to cause significant damage and serious harm to the United States in the other direction. And that's really more so the issue with nuclear warfare there, and that's why we want to try and avoid it the best we can. Because sure, out of the 6,000, I believe, nuclear weapons that they claim that they have that are operational, maybe only 1,000 of those work. But in reality, it probably only would take about 300 warheads to basically render the United States inoperable in a non-existent state at that point, except for being existent on paper. So, even at that point, with that many nuclear weapons operational, they still pose a significant nuclear risk to the United States of America. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, I was just looking at Flight Radar 24 out of curiosity at all the flights in the area and stuff like that. There was like a huge number of private jets leaving the Super Bowl, like leaving San Francisco right now. Like there's just, if you look at all flights, there's just private jets galore, like all over Nevada, all over like the western or actually eastern part of California. I mean, look at all. If you click them, they show that they're coming from San Francisco from the Super Bowl, like almost all of them.
Oh my God. Look at all these, dude.
Look at the ones over Nevada. Like every single one, like is coming from San Francisco.
Oh my Lord. Also, some of these aren't even that big. Like, some of them are quite small. That one's a pretty big one. This one, though, was like an itty bitty. I mean, look at that thing. The Cessna Citation CJ3.
Yeah, man, these are the poors.
Oh, man, look at these pores. I mean, look at these pores.
Man,
their
gentleman costs $5 million.
Oh, look, here's one of them, a Dassault Falcon. Oh, this person's got money. They're flying south of us right now. How about this?
Must be a mega church pasture.
Now, Jesus wanted me to have that private jet because he wouldn't be riding on no donkey. But let's see here. What else do we have? Here's one, another Dassault Falcon. Look at this little poor in their Cessna Citation CJ2. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. You got to have at least a Boeing 757. That's the minimum. Anyone else who's got anything less than that? They're poor. But anyways, we're just kidding around, folks, because we don't even have any money close enough to get a private jet, much less that one that small even. But I'd have to say, that's crazy. I mean, I've never really paid attention to, like, private jets leaving the air. Is that a military flight? Oh, no, that's a freighter. I was about to be like, is that a military flight flying through here? Also, man, let's see. This one's at an altitude of 5,000 feet over a mountain range? Bro, are they flying through the mountains? What are they doing? And then this one's at 18,000 feet. And this one's a Vista America aircraft. So this looks to be like a chartered private jet. Huh. That's interesting.
There's a thing called there's a thing where you can buy time on private jets where it's like net jets or flex jets or something like that.
Yeah, we got one right
I saw a few. Yeah, I saw a few of those leaving, like you're seeing right there, where I'm not really entirely sure how that works. I don't know if it's like a timeshare for jets or how it really works, but you get like a membership or something, and you can get a seat on the private jet. But at that point, though, it's like if you're doing that and you're sharing the jet with all these other people, it's no longer really a private jet, is it?
No, it's just a passenger plane with everyone paying exorbitantly high prices to sit in a tiny ass plane.
Yeah, I'd rather just go on commercial.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, that would be a waste of money at that point. Honestly, man, if I had shown up to the Super Bowl, I would have taken like a private rail car and ridden in style. Like I would have made it a whole adventure getting out there and back. Because that would have been way cheaper than getting a private jet, even.
Yeah, I would say so personally. I mean, I just don't have any desire to be on a private jet. I don't really want one. I haven't really needed one, and I just don't want one.
I don't really get the appeal of private jets, folks. I'm going to be honest with you all because it's just a money pit. And some people will be like, well, if you have the money, well, yeah, but if you have the money, wouldn't it just be better to, I don't know, like charter a private jet whenever you need one instead of just having one endlessly and having to pour out the maintenance for it? I mean, like imagine.
Could you imagine the other folks that are going to be on this thing? Oh, my house is 10,000 square feet. Oh, mine is
Oh,
12,000 square feet.
I
Oh,
just
I drive a Rolls Royce.
I just I just got done getting to Jackson Hole and talking to Rob Sycom. Have you ever heard of him? About a possible merger with Berkshire Hathaway. Oh heaven,
Oh
I'd
man,
hate
because
it.
they're trying hard too because they can't quite afford their own private jet and they're having to do the sharing thing. So they're trying extra hard to seem important. I'm sure.
Oh, oh, dude. Good lord, that'd be terrible. Imagine, dude, everyone in there is probably wearing a Rolex, guaranteed. Probably the most expensive one they could get. They're probably on a payment plan for it, even. And they're trying to wear anything. Like they're probably wearing the smelliest colognes, like that you can imagine. The stuff that screams, "I have money, pay attention to me," that kind of stuff. That would be hell on earth. Like it's already rough enough, folks, in economy. Imagine getting, imagine getting in the top 1% equivalent of economy on a shared private jet. Now that would be rough. That would truly be
Yeah.
rough.
The only downside to economy that I can tell is there's always like the mother with the screaming kid that she can't quite get under control, like screaming the entire flight. Like that literally there just every single time there's always like going on in the back, and it's always and most of the time the mothers won't even do anything to like quiet the kids down. Those let them sit there and scream the whole flight. It's like, why in the hell
I bet
every
you.
single time we get an economy it has to be a screaming kid back here and a mother not tending to the kid.
I bet you money, man, that's happening on one of these private jets somewhere. When someone turns around and says, "Can you shut that baby up? I need my patience. Time is money." And the mother's going to sit there and say, "You better not talk to Gerald that way. He is the heir to the Postmates Fund," like some shit like that, like the Postmates Trust. It's it's gonna be something like that. It's never gonna be peaceful. Honestly, man, public transport, you just gotta accept. There's always going to be some level of discomfort with it. It will never be perfect. Like I think even on those private jets, like on the shared ones, it's probably not that great. And also, folks, these private jets on the inside, like let me go pull up a Cessna citation. Says in the citation. What is this?
Oh,
Let's see.
something
XL.
I've been thinking, I don't want to fly commercial because I don't want to get in a tube full of demons. I never said that. Don't you ever say that.
Fun fact, a megachurch pastor said that. That wasn't just a sicko, that was a pastor. Pastor, what are you talking about?
Oh man, they just talk about whatever. But this is the interior of this Cessna Citation XLS. I'm gonna be upfront with y'all. This looks quite cramped. Like, what is the point of that? You're paying all of this money. Like, if you own this jet, you're paying all of this money to own this jet. You're then having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars every year in maintenance. You're also having to pay a pilot and a co-pilot hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to be on payroll for this thing, so that way you have a crew for it. You also got to pay the maintenance ground crew guys or a maintenance ground crew company and all of their staff for the labor of maintaining the aircraft. So you're spending at least less than $1 million, a little close to, maybe even over $1 million a year maintenance to fly and also the fuel involved as well, which is very expensive to fly from point to point, place to place. You're spending all of that money to sit in something this cramped. I mean, not even a CRJ from a regional flight would be this cramped. And you're paying all of that money for this. That feels like a ripoff to me. Like that's why I can't get into the allure of private jets, because you would have to be like one of the richest people in the world to ever get a plane big enough to where that kind of seems comfortable, or it would kind of make sense a little bit. But even still, it's still a money pit. It's an even bigger one at that point. I don't like them. I'll just be honest with you. If I'm gonna fly, I would just fly with a normal air carrier in first class, because that seems to make the most financial sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. Enough said. Enough said. Anyways, folks, with that, we're now going to be moving on into our third to last question of the night. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this is actually going to be our final question of the night, actually. We only have one left.
Oh, damn! I didn't know. Well, with that, we're going to be getting on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is One Visual, who said, "What will be the first phase of the new operation, and how long do you expect it to last?"
And the operation against who and where and what?
I'm assuming they're talking about Iran.
The first phase of the operation would be getting rid of the Iranian Air Force and Iranian Air Defense. air defense. Sorry, there, I almost hiccuped on air. But Iranian air defenses and also the Iranian Air Force. That would be phase 1, and we have no clue when that's going to happen. That could be next weekend, or it could be 2 months from now. We have no clue at all. So we're going to be waiting on that, much like y'all are. And so with that, folks, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to say, we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all have watched this stream tonight. We had a peak viewership of 14.5 thousand people and a total viewership of 110,000 people. We're always entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many of y'all consider this channel to be your primary source of news, and we are entirely honored that y'all would spend y'all's time tonight watching this news in the midst of the Super Bowl. And so a big thanks to you all so much once again for watching. We will see you all tomorrow if there is a short war video to make, and if there is a short war video to make, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And if there isn't a short war video to make, then y'all will see us on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 48 hours, actually, of the news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all on Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. And also, we might see you tomorrow midday for a short war video if there is enough news to cover. We'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, though, a huge shout out to the LSA for helping us to raise over $3,000 for the charity of the night, which is Nova Ukraine once again. And we will see you all once again on Tuesday night. And in the meantime, we'll see you all then. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.
Spring on his shores.